The crack echoed through business class like a gunshot. 5-year-old Maya Washington's scream pierced through the cabin as her tiny body crumpled to the floor, her left arm bent at an impossible angle. Flight attendant Brenda Callahan stood over the sobbing child, the pink backpack still clutched in her white-knuckled fist, and said the words that would destroy her entire career. "Oh, for God's sake, stop being so dramatic. You shouldn't have been in the aisle anyway." What Brenda didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known, was that the elegant black woman now shooting to her feet in first class wasn't just any passenger. She was Victoria Washington, founder and CEO of American Eagle Airways, the very airline whose uniform Brenda wore. If you want to see justice served in the most satisfying way possible, subscribe to my channel right now and watch this story until the very end. And drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. 4 hours earlier, Maya Washington bounced on her toes in the first-class lounge at Los Angeles International Airport, her light-up shoes flashing pink and purple with every movement. Her box braids clicked softly as she turned to her mother, gap-toothed smile wide with excitement. "Mommy, look! My shoes are dancing!" Victoria Washington looked up from her tablet and felt her heart squeeze. At 42, she'd built an empire from nothing, commanded boardrooms, negotiated billion-dollar deals. But nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to the joy of watching her 5-year-old discover the world. "They sure are, baby girl. Those shoes know you're about to go on a big adventure." Maya's smile flickered, just slightly, just enough for a mother to notice. "Mommy, do I really have to sit by myself?" Victoria set down her tablet. This conversation. They'd had it a dozen times in the past week, and it never got easier. "Come here, sweetheart." Maya climbed onto her mother's lap, her small body fitting perfectly against Victoria's chest. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and the chocolate chip pancakes they'd had for breakfast. "I know you're scared. You want to know a secret? I'm scared too." Maya pulled back, eyes wide. "You're scared, but you're not scared of anything." "Oh, baby, everyone gets scared, even mommies. The trick isn't to never be scared. The trick is to be brave anyway. You know what Washington women say?" Maya nodded solemnly. "Washington women can do anything." "That's right. And you, Maya Rose Washington, are the bravest Washington woman I know. You're going to fly all by yourself to see Grandma Rose, and the airplane people are going to take such good care of you. Promise." Victoria pressed her lips to Maya's forehead. "I promise, baby. They're professionals. That's their job, to make sure little girls like you are safe and happy." She believed it. God help her, she believed every word. The gate agent arrived 20 minutes later, a young woman with a warm smile and gentle manner. "Maya Washington, I'm here to take you to your special seat." Maya looked at her mother one last time. Her chin trembled, but she didn't cry. Washington women didn't cry, not when they were being brave. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you more, Princess. I'll see you in 1 week. Grandma Rose is going to be so excited." Victoria watched her daughter walk away, those light-up shoes flashing with every step. Maya turned at the jet bridge entrance and waved her small hand, cutting through the air. Victoria waved back. She kept smiling until Maya disappeared from view. Then she sat down in that first-class lounge chair and let herself feel the weight of what she'd just done. She'd put her baby on a plane alone, her 5-year-old, her entire world. But it would be fine. The airline had protocols. The flight attendants were trained professionals. Maya would be treated like royalty. Victoria picked up her tablet and tried to focus on the board meeting agenda. Numbers blurred, words swam. All she could see was Maya's face, trying so hard to be brave. 3 hours. That's how long until Maya landed safely in Atlanta. 3 hours, and this gnawing anxiety would be over. She had no idea that in 3 hours she would be kneeling in an airplane aisle, cradling her daughter's broken arm and watching a flight attendant's career implode in real time. On the other side of the airport, Brenda Callahan was holding court. The crew briefing room was cramped and fluorescent lit, nothing like the luxury passengers enjoyed. Brenda stood at the front, her blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, her uniform pressed sharp enough to cut glass. "Listen up. Flight 1247 to Atlanta. Full business class, which means entitled passengers who think they own the plane." Her voice dripped with contempt. 23 years she'd been doing this job. 23 years of serving people she secretly despised, of smiling when she wanted to scream, of watching younger, prettier flight attendants get promoted while she stayed stuck in the same position. But not anymore. The regional supervisor position was finally opening up, and she was going to get it. She deserved it. She'd earned it. "I need everyone at their best today. No mistakes, no incidents. Understood?" The crew nodded. Everyone except the young Latina woman in the back row. Jasmine Torres sat with her arms crossed, something troubled in her expression. At 24, she still believed that customer service meant actually caring about customers. 18 months with the airline, and she hadn't yet learned to look away when things got ugly. Brenda noticed her expression. Of course she did. She noticed everything. "Problem, Torres." "No, ma'am." "Good. Now we have an unaccompanied minor in business class, 5 years old." Something flickered across Brenda's face. Something cold. These UM kids are always a headache. Crying, demanding attention, disrupting real passengers. I need whoever's handling that row to keep her quiet and contained. Business class isn't a daycare. Jasmine's hand went up before she could stop herself. "What's the child's name? I'd like to introduce myself. When she boards, help her feel." "Her name is passenger in seat 12C. Focus on the adults who actually pay full fare, Torres, unless you want to explain to HR why your performance reviews keep coming back mediocre." The threat hung in the air. Jasmine lowered her hand. Bobby Freeman, a silver-haired veteran who'd been flying longer than Brenda, caught Jasmine's eye and gave a small shake of his head. "Not here, not now." The briefing ended. The crew filed out. But Bobby lingered until only he and Jasmine remained. "Kid, I know what you're thinking, but Brenda has connections. Her cousin's husband is on the board. People who cross her have a way of disappearing." She's talking about a 5-year-old Bobby, a scared little girl flying alone for the first time. "I know, and I'm asking you to be smart about this. Watch from a distance. Document if you have to. But don't confront her directly. Not yet." Jasmine nodded, but something in her eyes said she wasn't going to just watch. Not if that child needed help. Bobby saw it. He recognized it because he'd felt it himself once upon a time, before decades of airline politics had taught him the cost of caring too much. "Just be careful," he said. "Please." Maya stepped onto the airplane, and everything suddenly felt too big. The ceiling was low, but the aisle stretched forever. Adults in suits filled the seats, staring at glowing screens, talking in serious voices. Nobody looked at her. Nobody smiled. Her light-up shoes felt wrong now. Babyish. Stupid. She found her seat 12C, just like the nice lady said, and climbed up. Her feet dangled far above the floor. The seatbelt was confusing, all straps and metal, nothing like her car seat at home. She was trying to figure it out when a voice made her jump. Well, what do we have here?" A blonde woman stood in the aisle looking down at Maya with eyes that weren't smiling even though her mouth was. Maya's stomach dropped. She knew that look. She'd seen it on the face of the mean girl at her preschool, the one who told her she couldn't play princess because princesses weren't brown. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" The question made no sense. This was her seat. The nice lady had brought her here. "Yes, ma'am. 12C. The woman her name tag said. Brenda looked Maya up and down. The tutu dress, the braids with beads, the light-up shoes. Maya felt herself being measured and found wanting. "Where are your parents?" "My mommy's on a different plane. I'm going to see my grandma." "An unaccompanied minor." Brenda said it like it was a disease. "In business class." "Is that bad?" For a long moment, Brenda didn't answer. Then she smiled that same, not really smiling smile and leaned closer. "Business class is for business people, little girl, not children who should be in economy where they belong. You stay in this seat. You don't make noise. You don't bother anyone. Understood?" Maya nodded frantically. She didn't understand, not really, but she knew when an adult was angry. and this adult was very, very angry. Brenda walked away, and Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she blinked them back. Washington women were brave. Washington women didn't cry. She pulled her coloring book from her backpack and tried to color the princess on the first page, but her hands were shaking too hard to stay inside the lines. "Hey there, princess." Maya looked up to find a different woman crouching in the aisle. This one had warm brown eyes and a smile that reached all the way up. "I'm Jasmine. I'm going to be helping take care of you today." "What's your name?" "Maya." Her voice came out tiny. "Maya, I love that name. Can I tell you a secret?" Maya nodded. "I didn't fly by myself until I was way older than you. You must be super brave." For the first time since boarding, Maya smiled. A real smile, gap-toothed and genuine. "I'm 5. I'm going to be 6 in March." "Almost 6. That is grown up." Jasmine glanced around, then lowered her voice. "I have special cookies saved for our VIP passengers. You want some after we take off?" "I love cookies." "Then cookies you shall have." Jasmine patted her hand. "If you need anything at all, you press this button right here. I'll come running." "Okay." "Okay, thank you, Miss Jasmine." As Jasmine stood to help other passengers, she caught Brenda watching from the galley. The senior flight attendant's expression could have frozen fire. Jasmine pretended not to notice. Let Brenda disapprove. That little girl was scared and alone, and Jasmine wasn't going to let anyone make her feel unwelcome. Not today, not ever. The plane took off, and Maya survived. She'd squeezed her eyes shut so tight she saw stars gripped the armrests until her fingers hurt, and held her breath until her lungs burned. But she'd done it. The plane was in the sky, and she hadn't cried. Mommy would be so proud. She looked out the window at the clouds below actual clouds beneath her, and forgot to be scared for just a moment. The world looked like her toy blocks from up here. Tiny houses, tiny cars, tiny everything. Her throat was dry. The airplane air tasted funny like metal and recycled breath. She wanted water, but that would mean pressing the button. And what if the mean lady came instead of Miss Jasmine? Maya waited. 5 minutes. 10. Her throat got drier. Her tummy started to hurt. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore. She pressed the button. "Please be Miss Jasmine. Please be Miss Jasmine. Please." Brenda appeared, arms crossed, face pinched. "What?" Not "what can I get you?" or "how can I help?" Just what? Like Maya was bothering her, like Maya was a problem. "May I please have some water?" A sigh, so heavy it seemed to fill the whole cabin. "Fine." Brenda disappeared. Maya waited. She watched the man in front of her get a glass of champagne with a smile. She watched the woman across the aisle get orange juice and warm cookies. She watched flight attendant after flight attendant walk past her row without stopping. 15 minutes later, Brenda returned. She practically dropped the cup on Maya's tray table, spilling half of it onto her coloring book. Maya watched the water soak through her princess, turning the beautiful brown face into a smeared mess. "There. Happy now?" Maya couldn't answer. The tears she'd been fighting all day finally spilled over, running down her cheeks in hot streams. Brenda was already walking away. Maya cried silently, the way she'd learned to cry at preschool when the mean girls were cruel and the teachers didn't notice. Small, hitching breaths, shoulders shaking, mouth pressed tight to keep any sound from escaping. She was trying so hard to be brave. Why was it so hard? In first class, Victoria felt it again. That pull. That instinct. Something was wrong with her baby. She'd been reviewing the quarterly projections for the board meeting numbers swimming across her tablet screen, but suddenly the numbers didn't matter. Nothing mattered except this feeling in her chest, this certainty that Maya needed her. She picked up her phone, checked for messages, even though the plane was still on the ground in Los Angeles, her own flight not departing for another 20 minutes. Nothing from the airline, nothing from her assistant. No reason to worry. And yet, Victoria closed her eyes and sent a thought across the miles, the way mothers do, the way they've done since the beginning of time. "Hold on, baby. Mommy's coming. Just hold on." Maya needed to use the bathroom. She'd needed to go for 30 minutes, but she was too scared to press the button again, too scared of the mean lady, too scared of being a bother. But she couldn't wait anymore. Her bladder felt like it was going to burst. She unbuckled her seatbelt, slid down from the too big seat, and started walking toward the back of the cabin. She'd seen other people going in and out of a little door back there. She made it 3 rows before the mean lady materialized in front of her. "Where do you think you're going?" Maya froze. "I need to use the bathroom." "The bathroom is occupied." Maya looked past her. The little light on the door was green. That meant empty, right? That's what it meant at her preschool. "But the light says—" "I said it's occupied." Brenda's voice rose loud enough that people in nearby rows looked up. "Do you have a hearing problem?" The cruelty of the question hit Maya like a slap. She didn't understand why this woman hated her so much. She didn't understand what she'd done wrong. All she knew was that she was scared and alone, and she really, really needed to pee, and this woman was blocking her way. A man in a nice suit spoke up. "Ma'am, the bathroom light is green. She's just a child." Brenda turned to him, and her face transformed. Suddenly, she was all smiles, all warmth. "Sir, I appreciate your concern, but we have protocols for unaccompanied minors. I have the situation completely under control." "What protocols involve preventing a 5-year-old from using the toilet?" The question hung in the air. Brenda's smile flickered. "Fine." She stepped aside, just barely. "Make it quick." Maya practically ran to the bathroom. Inside, she locked the door and finally, let herself sob. Big gulping cries that she muffled with her hands. Her whole body shook. She wanted her mommy. She wanted to go home. She wanted to be anywhere except on this airplane with this mean lady who looked at her like she was something dirty. Why? Why was this happening? She didn't know. She was only 5. She didn't have words for discrimination or bias or the kind of hatred that sees a child's brown skin and braids and concludes that she doesn't belong. All she knew was that she hurt. Not physically, not yet, but in that deep place where a child's sense of safety lives. That place was cracked now, maybe broken. When she came out of the bathroom, her eyes were red, but her face was dry. She walked back to her seat without looking at anyone, buckled herself in, and stared out the window at the clouds. She didn't press the call button again, not even when her stomach growled with hunger, not even when her throat burned with thirst. She just sat there making herself small, making herself invisible, waiting for the flight to be over. That's when Jasmine appeared with cookies and apple juice. "There you are, princess. I promised you treats, didn't I?" Maya's face lit up, the first real joy since takeoff. "You remembered?" "Of course I remembered. VIPs always get cookies." Maya reached for one, but before she could take a bite, Brenda was there. Always there, like a shadow with teeth. "What is this?" Jasmine didn't flinch. "Snack service for our unaccompanied minor, per protocol." "Those are premium cookies for full-fare passengers." Unaccompanied minor service is a premium fare. She's entitled to the same service as everyone else in this cabin. The 2 women stared at each other. Around them, passengers had stopped pretending not to listen. This is what it looks like when someone draws a line. When someone says, "this far and no further." This is what courage looks like when it's quiet and steady and refuses to back down. Brenda broke first. "Fine, but if she makes a mess, you're cleaning it up." She stalked away, and Jasmine turned back to Maya with a gentle smile. "You enjoy those cookies, sweetheart. You deserve them." But Maya had lost her appetite. The cookies sat untouched on her tray. In first class, Victoria's phone buzzed. Her flight was boarding. She gathered her things, checked one more time for any messages about Maya. Nothing. She'll be fine, Victoria told herself. It's been 2 hours. She's probably eating cookies and watching movies and having the time of her life. But as she walked down the jet bridge to her own plane, that feeling in her chest wouldn't go away. Something was wrong. She just didn't know what. Not yet. 2 hours into Maya's flight, the seatbelt sign chimed on. "Folks, we're encountering some turbulence. Please return to your seats." The plane bucked and shuddered. Maya gripped her armrests, heart pounding. This was scarier than takeoff. The whole world was shaking and there was nothing solid to hold on to. She needed Mr. Buttons, her teddy bear. He was in her backpack in the overhead bin. Miss Jasmine had put him up there because there wasn't room under the seat. Mr. Buttons always made her feel better. He smelled like home, like safety, like Mommy's hugs. Maya looked around desperately. She couldn't see Miss Jasmine anywhere. The cabin was chaos, flight attendants, rushing passengers, scrambling carts, rattling. Without thinking, driven by fear and the desperate need for comfort, Maya unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up on her seat. She reached toward the overhead bin, stretching as high as she could. Her fingers brushed the latch. Almost. Just a little higher. "What do you think you're doing?" Brenda's shriek cut through the noise like a knife. She appeared from nowhere, face twisted with rage, and she grabbed Maya's arm, not took, not held. Grabbed. Her left arm just above the wrist, fingers digging in, nails pressing through the fabric of Maya's sleeve. "I told you to stay in your seat." She yanked. Later passengers would try to describe that moment, the violence of it. The way Brenda didn't just pull Maya down but wrenched her, twisting the child's body in midair, all her adult strength against a 5-year-old's fragile bones. The crack was audible 3 rows away. Maya didn't scream immediately. There was a moment, just a moment of absolute silence, her brain trying to process what her body already knew. Then the pain hit. The scream that came out of that little girl was something no one on that plane would ever forget. Not a cry, not a wail. A scream. The sound of a child's world shattering, of trust breaking, of safety becoming a memory. Maya crumpled to the floor of the aisle, her left arm bent at an angle that made several passengers gasp and look away. Her light-up shoes flashed frantically as her legs kicked involuntarily from the agony. And Brenda Callahan stood over her, still holding that pink backpack, and said the words that would end her career. "Oh, for God's sake, stop being so dramatic. You shouldn't have been in the aisle anyway." The cabin erupted. A man in an expensive suit was out of his seat instantly, his phone already recording. "I'm documenting everything. This woman just assaulted a child." A woman several rows back screamed for medical help. Another passenger was shouting about calling the police. And from the back of the cabin, Jasmine Torres came running, pushing past Brenda without ceremony, dropping to her knees beside Maya. "Oh my God, oh my God. Maya, sweetheart, I'm here. Don't move your arm. Don't try to move." Maya couldn't respond. The pain was everything. It consumed her, blocked out the world, left room for nothing except the horrible wrongness of her arm and the sound of her own screaming. A woman pushed through the gathering crowd. Dr. Eleanor Kim, pediatric orthopedic surgeon traveling home from a conference. She'd been watching the flight attendant's treatment of Maya for hours, growing more disgusted by the minute. Now she was in full doctor mode. "Everyone back. I'm a physician." She knelt beside Jasmine, her trained eyes assessing the injury in seconds. "The radius is fractured, possibly both bones. We need to immobilize this immediately." "I'll get the first aid kit," Jasmine said, already moving. Dr. Kim turned to Maya, her voice shifting into the calm, reassuring tone she used with frightened children every day. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm Dr. Kim. I know it hurts so much right now, but I'm going to help make it better, okay? Can you be brave for me? For just a little longer?" Maya's screams had subsided into sobbing, great heaving breaths that shook her entire body. She managed the tiniest nod. "That's my girl. You're so strong." "The strongest girl I've ever met." Around them, the chaos continued. Passengers shouting, phones recording from every angle. Bobby Freeman trying to establish some kind of order while simultaneously blocking Brenda from leaving the scene. And through it all, Brenda Callahan stood frozen, her face cycling through shock, fear, and finally, unbelievably defensiveness. "It was an accident. She was out of her seat. The seatbelt sign was on. I was just doing my job." The man with the phone. Marcus Henderson, civil rights attorney, grandfather of twins, stepped toward her. "Lady, I've been watching you for the past 2 hours. I saw you question whether that child belonged in business class. I saw you deny her water while serving champagne to others. I saw you block her from using the bathroom, and I just saw you grab her arm and yank her off that seat with enough force to break her bones. I didn't mean to. That's not what I saw. That's not what anyone in this cabin saw. He held up his phone. And it's not what this video shows. Brenda's face went white. You can't, that's a violation of my privacy. You're in a public space committing assault on a minor. There's no privacy violation. And when we land, this video is going to the police, the airline, and every news station that will take my call. Please. Brenda's voice cracked. Please, I've been with this airline for 23 years. I'm up for a promotion. I can't. You should have thought about that before you broke a 5-year-old's arm. In first class, Victoria's flight had just taken off for New York. She was staring at her tablet, trying to read the same paragraph for the 5th time, when her phone buzzed with a notification. She almost ignored it. Almost. But something made her look. That feeling, that pull, that certainty that something was terribly, horribly wrong. The notification was from her assistant. One word. Urgent. Victoria opened the message, and her entire world collapsed. Mrs. Washington, there's been an incident on Maya's flight. Flight crew injured her. Broken arm. Flight is being diverted to Dallas for emergency medical care. Sending details now. Victoria's scream brought 3 flight attendants running. Turn this plane around. Ma'am, we can't. I don't care what you can't do. My daughter is hurt. My baby is on a plane with a broken arm, and I need to get to her right now. The senior flight attendant recognized the name on the manifest. Victoria Washington, founder and CEO of American Eagle Airways, the airline that paid their salaries, the woman who could end careers with a phone call. Let me speak to the captain, ma'am. We'll figure something out. Victoria didn't hear her. She was already dialing, hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. Daniel, it's Victoria. Maya's been hurt on one of our flights. I need to know everything. Every single detail, and I need to know now. On Maya's flight, the passengers had been informed that they were diverting to Dallas. Medical emergency. A child needed hospital care. Everyone, please remain calm. Maya lay on the floor of the aisle, her arm now splinted with magazines and secured with scarves donated by passengers. Dr. Kim had given her children's pain reliever from the first aid kit, but it barely touched the agony. She'd stopped screaming at least. The shock was setting in her body's natural defense against unbearable pain. Jasmine sat beside her, holding her good hand, talking in a steady stream of gentle words. You're so brave, Maya. The bravest girl in the whole world. We're going to land soon, and there are going to be doctors waiting for you. They're going to fix your arm all up, and you'll get a cool cast, and everyone at school will want to sign it. I want my mommy. The words, so small, so broken, made Jasmine's eyes fill with tears. I know, sweetheart. She's coming. She's going to meet us at the hospital. She's probably already on her way. She promised the airplane people would take care of me. Jasmine felt something twist in her chest. Guilt, shame, rage at herself for not doing more, not stopping Brenda sooner, not protecting this child the way she deserved to be protected. I'm so sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Maya looked up at her with eyes that held too much pain for someone so young. Why did the mean lady hurt me? Did I do something bad? And there it was. The question that breaks hearts. The question that proves the real damage isn't just physical. No, baby, you didn't do anything bad. Sometimes grown-ups do wrong things. That's not your fault. That's never your fault. Maya nodded, but her eyes said she didn't quite believe it. 5 years old and already learning that lesson. The one that says, maybe you deserved it. Maybe you asked for it. Maybe if you'd just been different, been better, been less, it wouldn't have happened. Across the aisle, Brenda Callahan sat in a row by herself, Bobby Freeman standing guard to make sure she didn't move. She'd stopped trying to defend herself, stopped trying to explain. She just sat there staring at nothing, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. 23 years, her whole career, her identity, everything she'd built, everything she'd sacrificed, gone because of one moment, one decision, one child. She told herself it was an accident. She almost believed it. But deep down in the place she never looked, she knew the truth. She'd been angry, not at Maya, not really, at what Maya represented, at who Maya was, at the world that had given this child business-class seats while Brenda scraped by on flight attendant wages, struggling to maintain appearances, pretending she was still the person she used to be before her family's money disappeared. She'd looked at Maya and seen everything she resented. Youth, innocence, the casual assumption of belonging, the light-up shoes and tutu dress and gap-toothed smile of a child who didn't know yet that the world could be cruel. And she'd wanted to teach her. That's what Brenda couldn't admit. That's what she couldn't face. She'd wanted to hurt that little girl, maybe not physically, maybe not consciously, but she'd wanted to make her feel small, make her feel wrong, make her feel like she didn't belong. And now a child had a broken arm, and Brenda's career was over, and nothing would ever make that right. The plane began its descent into Dallas. In the cabin, passengers sat in heavy silence, phones clutched in hands, minds replaying what they'd witnessed. Some were crying, some were angry, all of them were changed. Dr. Kim checked Maya's vitals one more time. Stable, but she needed real medical care, soon. Bobby Freeman radioed ahead, medical personnel standing by. Security standing by. Management had been notified, and somewhere over the Atlantic on a plane that couldn't turn around, Victoria, Washington was making phone calls that would shake the airline to its foundation. I want her terminated before I land, not suspended, not investigated, terminated, and I want security to escort her off that plane in front of everyone who watched her hurt my daughter. Victoria, we should follow proper procedure. Procedure, procedure. A woman who works for me just broke my child's arm, and you're talking about procedure. The union. The union can file a grievance. I don't care. Fire her now, or I'll fire you and then fire her. Your choice, Daniel. You have 30 seconds. Silence on the line. Then, done. I'll make the calls. Victoria hung up and let herself feel it. Just for a moment. The rage, the terror, the guilt. She'd put Maya on that plane. She'd trusted the airline, her airline, to keep her baby safe. And now Maya was hurt, scared, alone with strangers, instead of her mother. Victoria had built this company from nothing. She'd hired thousands of employees. She'd created protocols and policies and training programs. And somewhere along the way, she'd hired a monster. She'd created a system that allowed that monster to thrive for 23 years. She'd failed. She would make it right. She would tear down every policy that had allowed this to happen and build something better in its place. She would hold everyone accountable, including herself. But first, she had to get to her daughter. The wheels touched down in Dallas. Maya didn't open her eyes. She'd retreated somewhere inside herself, a place where the pain couldn't reach, where the mean lady couldn't find her. Jasmine stayed beside her as the plane taxied to the gate. Almost there, sweetheart. Almost there. The cabin door opened, and EMTs rushed in with a small stretcher. They were gentle, so gentle as they transferred Maya from the floor. They spoke in soothing voices, checked her vitals, secured her arm. As they wheeled her toward the door, Maya finally spoke. "Miss Jasmine, I'm here, honey. Will you tell my mommy I was brave?" Jasmine's voice broke. "You can tell her yourself, sweetheart. She's coming. She's going to be so proud of you." They wheeled Maya off the plane, and Jasmine stood in the aisle, watching until the small form disappeared through the jet bridge. Then she turned to face Brenda. The older woman had stood up, was gathering her things, was trying to maintain some dignity in utter defeat. "You're not going anywhere," Jasmine said. "I need to get off this plane." "You'll get off when security escorts you off. That's what management ordered. That's what's going to happen." Brenda's face twisted. "You think you're better than me? You think you're some hero? You're nothing. A nobody. 18 months and you think you understand anything? I understand that a 5-year-old girl is on her way to the hospital because of you. I understand that you spent 2 hours making her feel like she didn't belong, and then you put your hands on her. That's all I need to understand." She was out of her seat, the seatbelt sign. "Stop." Bobby Freeman stepped between them. "Just stop, Brenda. It's over. You're done. The only thing left is how much dignity you walk out of here with. I suggest you use what's left of it to be quiet." Brenda opened her mouth, closed it, sat back down. The security team arrived 5 minutes later. 4 officers, faces grim, voices professional. "Brenda Callahan, we need you to come with us." She didn't fight, didn't argue, just stood up and walked head down past rows of passengers who stared at her with disgust through the jet bridge into the terminal. She walked past the gate agents who'd heard what happened, past other crew members who wouldn't meet her eyes, past travelers who'd already seen videos spreading across social media. 23 years. Ended in 23 steps. At the hospital, Maya was rushed into emergency care. Dr. Kim had been right. Both bones in the forearm fractured. Surgery would be needed to set them properly. Pins, weeks in a cast, months of healing. The physical damage was significant. The emotional damage was worse. When the nurse tried to adjust her arm, Maya screamed not in pain, but in terror. "No, don't hurt me! Don't hurt me!" "Sweetheart, we're trying to help. I want my mommy." The medical team exchanged looks. This child had been traumatized. This was going to take more than surgery to fix. In an airplane somewhere over Kansas, Victoria received updates every 5 minutes. Surgery scheduled. Maya's condition stable. Grandma Rose was on her way from Atlanta. Everything was being handled, but nothing was enough. Nothing would be enough until Victoria could hold her daughter and promise her that no one would ever hurt her again. 3 hours later, Victoria burst through the hospital doors. She'd chartered a plane the moment hers landed in New York, broken speed records getting to Dallas. She was still in her Chanel suit, her hair disheveled, her makeup ruined from crying. None of it mattered. Maya Washington, where is she? "Ma'am, if you could just—" "I'm her mother. Where is my daughter?" A doctor appeared. "Mrs. Washington, I'm Dr. Phillips. Your daughter is out of surgery. Everything went well. She's in recovery now. Take me to her. Please, take me to her right now." They walked through hallways that seemed endless, past rooms full of sick children, past nurses and orderlies, and the antiseptic smell of hospital air. And then they were there. Maya lay in a bed that swallowed her small frame. Her left arm was encased in a bright pink cast. She'd apparently requested the color before surgery. One small act of control in a day when everything had spun out of control. Tubes and monitors surrounded her. Her eyes were closed still under the lingering effects of anesthesia. Victoria stopped breathing. Her baby, her entire world, broken and bandaged in a hospital bed because of something that never should have happened. She crossed to the bed and took Maya's good hand in hers, gently, so gently. "Mommy's here, baby. Mommy's here, and I'm never leaving you again. Never. I promise." Maya stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. Confusion first, then recognition, then, "Mommy!" She tried to sit up to reach for her mother, but the tubes and cast made it impossible. She started crying instead, great heaving sobs that shook the bed. Victoria climbed onto the mattress, protocols be damned, and gathered her daughter as carefully as she could, mindful of the cast, mindful of the monitors, but needing to hold her more than she needed to breathe. "I've got you, baby. I've got you. You're safe now. Mommy's got you." The mean lady hurt me. I tried to be brave. I tried to be a Washington woman, but she hurt me, and I don't know what I did wrong. Victoria felt something inside her break, and then in that breaking, something else formed, something harder, something that would never forgive and never forget. "You didn't do anything wrong, Maya. Nothing. Do you hear me? That woman was bad. She was wrong, and she's going to pay for what she did. Mommy promises you that." She said I didn't belong. You belong everywhere. You belong in business class and first class and anywhere else you want to be. You're Maya Rose Washington. You're brilliant and beautiful and brave. And no one gets to tell you where you belong. They held each other in that hospital room, mother and daughter, while the world outside continued to turn, while videos spread across the internet, while hashtags trended, while an airline stock price began to drop, and while Brenda Callahan sat in an airport security office alone with her termination papers in her hand and the rest of her life in ruins. Justice was just beginning. Victoria held Maya. until the child fell asleep again, exhausted from pain and trauma and the overwhelming events of the day. Only then did she allow herself to step out of the room, leaving Grandma Rose to watch over her granddaughter. The moment the door closed behind her, Victoria's legs nearly gave out. She pressed her back against the wall, breathing hard, fighting the tears that wanted to come. She couldn't break down, not yet, not when there was so much work to do. Her phone had been buzzing nonstop for hours. She finally looked at it. 247 missed calls, 892 unread emails, social media mentions in the hundreds of thousands. The story had broken. Victoria's assistant had sent a summary. A passenger on the flight had posted footage of Brenda yanking Maya from the seat. The video had gone viral within minutes. News outlets were picking it up. The hashtag Justice for Maya was trending nationwide. And everyone wanted to know, what would the airline do? What would the CEO do? They didn't know yet. They didn't know the CEO was Maya's mother. They didn't know that Victoria Washington had already fired the flight attendant before the plane even landed. They didn't know that this was personal in a way that would shake the entire aviation industry. Victoria pulled up a number and dialed. "Daniel, I need a full briefing. Everything." "Victoria, how's Maya, is she?" "She's sleeping. She just had surgery to put pins in her arm because one of my employees broke it. Now tell me everything you know about Brenda Callahan." Daniel Morrison, the COO who had worked alongside Victoria for 15 years, heard the steel in her voice. He'd never heard her sound like this before. Cold, controlled, dangerous. "I'm pulling her personnel file now. 23 years with the company. Senior flight attendant based out of LAX, up for regional supervisor promotion." "That promotion is dead. Already canceled. Victoria, there's something else. I started digging into her history. There have been complaints." "How many?" A pause. Too long. "How many, Daniel?" 17 formal complaints over the past decade. Another 43 informal incident reports, all with similar patterns. Passengers who didn't fit a certain profile, being treated differently, denied service, humiliated. Victoria's grip on the phone tightened. 17 complaints, and she was still employed. She was up for promotion. The complaints were investigated and closed. Insufficient evidence. Her word against the passengers. And she has connections, Victoria. Her cousin's husband is on the board, Richard Whitmore. Victoria laughed. Actually laughed, but there was no humor in it. Richard Whitmore. Of course, the same Richard Whitmore who voted against my diversity initiatives last year. The same Richard Whitmore who said we were being too aggressive about cultural sensitivity training. Victoria, I'm not defending. No, you're not, because there's no defense. 17 complaints, 43 incidents. And nobody did anything because she knew the right people. Meanwhile, my daughter is in a hospital bed with a broken arm. What do you want me to do? I want you to preserve every document, every complaint, every email that ever mentioned Brenda Callahan's name. I want our legal team on this immediately, and I want an emergency board meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, but the directors are scattered across. Then they can fly back. That's what private jets are for. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. headquarters, non-negotiable. What are you going to do? Victoria looked back at the door to Maya's room. Through the small window, she could see her mother stroking Maya's hair, singing softly, the way she'd done when Victoria was a child. I'm going to tear this whole system down and build something better, starting with Richard Whitmore. She hung up and made another call. Marcus Henderson's office, how may I direct your call? This is Victoria Washington. Mr. Henderson was a witness on my daughter's flight. I believe he left his contact information with the airline. I need to speak with him immediately. 3 minutes later, Marcus Henderson was on the line. Mrs. Washington, I was hoping you'd call. How is Maya? Recovering. Mr. Henderson, I understand you're an attorney. Civil rights, 30 years. I want to hire you, not just for my daughter's case. I want you to investigate every complaint that was ever filed against Brenda Callahan. I want you to find every passenger she ever mistreated, and I want to build a case that ensures this never happens again. Silence for a moment. Mrs. Washington, do you understand what you're asking? That's not just a lawsuit. That's a systemic investigation into your own company. I know exactly what I'm asking. I built this company from nothing, Mr. Henderson. I'm not going to let it become a place where children are hurt and complaints are swept under the rug. Will you help me or not? I'll be on the next flight to Dallas." Victoria ended the call. Her phone buzzed again immediately. This time it was a text from an unknown number. "This is Jasmine Torres, the flight attendant who tried to help Maya. I know I shouldn't be contacting you directly, but I have information about Brenda, about what she's done before. Please call me." Victoria saved the number. Then she walked back into Maya's room, sat down beside her daughter, and waited for the morning. 6 hours later, as dawn broke over Dallas, Brenda Callahan sat alone in a hotel room paid for by the airline, her last act of employment before the final termination paperwork was processed. She hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard that crack, felt the child's arm giving way under her grip, saw those small light-up shoes flashing as the girl hit the floor. Her phone had stopped ringing hours ago, not because people had stopped calling, but because she'd turned it off. She didn't want to hear the voicemails from colleagues she'd worked with for 2 decades, didn't want to see the texts from family members who'd already seen the videos online. The videos. God, the videos. She'd made the mistake of looking at social media before turning off her phone. The footage was everywhere. Grainy shot from multiple angles by passengers who'd been too shocked to intervene, but not too shocked to record. The comments were worse than the videos. Monster, child abuser, racist trash. She should be in jail. How does someone like this work with the public for 23 years? The answer to that last question was simple. People like Brenda worked with the public for 23 years because the system protected them, because complaints were filed and dismissed, because the right connections meant the right outcomes, because it was easier to believe the employee than the passenger, especially when the passengers making complaints were certain kinds of people. Brenda had never thought of herself as racist. She told herself that for years. She didn't use slurs. She didn't attend rallies. She didn't believe in segregation or white supremacy or any of that overt, obvious hatred. What she believed, what she'd always believed, deep in the place she never examined, was that certain people didn't belong in certain spaces. That business class and first class were for a certain type of person. That professionalism and class and refinement looked a certain way. And when someone didn't match that picture, when a black child in a tutu dress and light-up shoes sat in business class, something inside Brenda bristled, something ugly, something she'd never named but had always obeyed. She'd spent 23 years acting on that ugliness, 23 years of cold service and suspicious questions and unnecessary scrutiny for passengers who looked like Maya, 23 years of warm smiles and champagne for passengers who looked like her. And now it was over. Brenda picked up the termination letter that had been delivered an hour earlier. She read it again, even though she'd already memorized every word. Terminated for cause effective immediately. Violation of passenger safety protocols. Conduct unbecoming. Forfeiture of all pension benefits. Pension benefits. She'd been 3 years away from retirement. 3 years away from the pension she'd been counting on to support her through old age. Gone. All of it. There was a knock at the door. Brenda didn't answer. Couldn't face whoever was on the other side. The knock came again. Then a voice. "Brenda, it's Bobby. I know you're in there. We need to talk." Bobby Freeman, her colleague of 15 years, the one who'd guarded her on the plane, the one who'd watched her escorted off in disgrace. She didn't want to talk to him, but she didn't have the energy to pretend she wasn't there. She opened the door. Bobby looked old, older than his 58 years. His silver hair was disheveled, his uniform wrinkled. He hadn't slept either. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside. He walked past her, looked around the sparse room, and sat heavily on the bed. "Why did you do it, Brenda?" The question was quiet, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse than if he'd screamed at her. "I didn't mean to hurt her. It was an accident." "No, not that. Everything else. The way you treated her from the moment she boarded, the questions about whether she belonged, the water you denied her, the bathroom you blocked. Why?" Brenda didn't have an answer, not one she could say out loud. "I've worked with you for 15 years, Bobby continued. "I watched you with passengers. I saw the pattern. I reported it twice, you know. Nothing happened. They said there wasn't enough evidence. They said you were a valued employee with an excellent track record. You reported me. I had to. What you were doing was wrong, Brenda. It was wrong every time. But the system protected you. Your connections protected you. And so it kept going. Until yesterday." Brenda sat down in the chair by the window. She felt hollow, empty, like everything that had made her herself had been scooped out, leaving nothing but a shell. "What's going to happen to me?" "I don't know. The airlines terminated you. There might be criminal charges, assault on a minor. Civil suits are almost certain. That little girl's mother is Victoria Washington." Brenda looked up sharply. "Victoria Washington, as in the CEO. Yes, that child you broke, that was her daughter." The blood drained from Brenda's face. She actually felt lightheaded. Of all the passengers on all the flights she'd chosen to torment the CEO's child. "I didn't know. How could I have known? Would it have mattered? Would you have treated her differently if you'd known her mother was important?" The question hung in the air. Both of them knew the answer. Yes, Brenda would have treated Maya like royalty if she'd known who her mother was. She would have brought cookies and juice and endless attention. That was the point. That was exactly the point. "I'm not a bad person," Brenda whispered. "I'm not." Bobby stood up. "I've known bad people, Brenda. Real evil. You're not that. But you're something worse, maybe. You're ordinary. You're the kind of ordinary cruelty that hides behind policy and protocol and just doing my job. You're the kind of ordinary that hurts children and then tells itself there must be a good reason." "Bobby, I'm going back to LA. I don't know if we'll see each other again. I hope for your sake that you use this time to really think about who you've been, not who you told yourself you were, who you actually were. Every day, every flight, every passenger you made feel unwelcome." He walked to the door, then stopped. That little girl asked her mother if she did something wrong. She asked if the mean lady hurt her because she was bad. She's 5 years old, Brenda, and you made her believe she deserved to be hurt. He left without another word. Brenda sat alone in the silence, and for the first time since the plane landed, she let herself cry. At 8 a.m. the following morning, Victoria Washington walked into American Eagle Airways headquarters in Los Angeles. She'd flown through the night, leaving Maya in the capable hands of Grandma Rose and a team of nurses who'd been personally vetted by Victoria's assistant. She hated leaving her daughter, hated every mile that separated them. But this couldn't wait. The boardroom was already full when she entered. 12 directors, hastily assembled from across the country, sat around the polished table. Some looked annoyed at being summoned so abruptly. Others looked nervous. All of them looked uncertain. Richard Whitmore sat at the far end, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expression carefully neutral. But Victoria saw the tension in his jaw. He knew what was coming. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice." Victoria began, her voice calm and controlled. "I'll keep this brief. 2 days ago, a 5-year-old girl was assaulted on one of our flights. Her arm was broken by a senior flight attendant named Brenda Callahan." Murmurs around the table. Some directors had seen the news. Others were hearing the details for the first time. "What many of you don't know is that the child was my daughter, Maya." The murmurs became gasps. "I'm not here to discuss what happened to Maya. I'm here to discuss how it was allowed to happen. Brenda Callahan had been with this company for 23 years. In that time, 17 formal complaints were filed against her. 43 incident reports documented patterns of discriminatory behavior, and nothing was done. Now, Victoria," Richard Whitmore interrupted, his voice smooth as oil. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Those complaints were investigated and found to be unsubstantiated. They were found to be inconvenient." Victoria's voice cracked like a whip. "There's a difference. Every single complaint came from passengers of color. Every single one described the same pattern of behavior: cold service, hostile questions, denial of basic amenities, and every single one was dismissed because Brenda Callahan was a valued employee with connections to this board. "What are you implying?" Whitmore's face had gone red. "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Your cousin's wife is Brenda Callahan. You personally intervened in at least 3 complaint investigations to ensure they were closed without action." "I have the emails, Richard. I've had them for about 6 hours." The room went silent. Whitmore's face had shifted from red to white. "Those emails are confidential." "Not anymore. I've shared them with our legal counsel, and with Marcus Henderson, the civil rights attorney I've retained to investigate this matter. He's very interested in patterns of obstruction that protected discriminatory employees." "Victoria, you can't just—" "I can." She leaned forward, hands flat on the table. "I built this company. I am the majority shareholder, and I am telling you, Richard, that your tenure on this board is over. You can resign quietly this morning, or you can be removed publicly this afternoon. Your choice. The other directors will never support—" "Let's ask them." Victoria looked around the room. "All in favor of accepting Richard Whitmore's resignation effective immediately." 11 hands went up. Whitmore was alone. He stood slowly, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. "You'll regret this, Victoria. You're making enemies you can't afford." "I can afford any enemy, Richard. What I can't afford is a board member who protects child abusers. You have 5 minutes to collect your things. Security will escort you out." Whitmore opened his mouth to respond, then thought better of it. He gathered his papers and walked out of the boardroom without looking back. Victoria waited until the door closed before continuing. "Now, let's talk about what happens next. I'm proposing a complete overhaul of our complaint investigation system. Third-party oversight. Mandatory review of any employee with more than 2 complaints. 0 tolerance for discriminatory behavior of any kind." For the next 2 hours, Victoria outlined her plan. The Maya Initiative. New training programs. New oversight committees. New consequences for employees who violated passenger rights. By the time the meeting ended, the board had unanimously approved every proposal. But Victoria wasn't done. Not even close. That evening, she met with Jasmine Torres at a coffee shop near the airport. The young flight attendant looked nervous, out of her element. She'd never met the CEO before, had never imagined she would. "Ms. Torres, thank you for reaching out." "Please call me Jasmine, and thank you for meeting with me. I know you must be incredibly busy." "I'm meeting with you because you tried to help my daughter when no one else would. That means more to me than you can possibly know." Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. "I should have done more. I should have stopped her before—" "You did what you could. The failure wasn't yours, it was the system's. Now tell me what you know." Jasmine pulled out her phone, scrolled through photos she'd taken over the past 18 months. "I started documenting after my 3rd flight with Brenda. I couldn't prove anything, but I knew something was wrong. The way she treated certain passengers. The comments she made when she thought no one was listening." She showed Victoria a photo of a complaint form half filled out. This was from a flight 6 months ago. An elderly black man in business class. Brenda spilled coffee on him and blamed him for having his tray table in the wrong position. He tried to file a complaint. I watched her intercept it before it got to the purser. She intercepted complaints all the time, and if a complaint did make it through, she'd coordinate with other crew members to provide witness statements that contradicted the passenger's account. She had a whole system. Victoria felt sick. 23 years. How many passengers had been hurt? How many complaints had disappeared? "Why didn't you report this?" Jasmine looked down. "I tried, once. My supervisor told me to mind my own business. She said Brenda had connections and that challenging her would end my career faster than I could blink." "Do you have documentation of that conversation?" "I have an email from my supervisor telling me to drop the matter. I saved it. I saved everything." Victoria leaned back in her chair, looking at this young woman who had been brave enough to stand up even quietly, even in small ways when the system told her not to. "Jasmine, how would you feel about a promotion?" "I'm sorry. I'm creating a new position." Customer Experience Manager. I need someone who understands what's wrong with our service culture and has the courage to fix it. Someone who's been on the front lines and knows what passengers actually experience. I think that person is you. Jasmine stared at her. Mrs. Washington, I've only been with the company 18 months. And in 18 months, you've shown more integrity than employees who've been here for decades. Will you do it? Yes. Yes, absolutely. Good. You'll report directly to me. Your first assignment is to work with Marcus Henderson's team to identify every passenger Brenda Callahan ever mistreated. I want them found. I want them contacted. And I want them to know that finally, someone is listening. Victoria stood and Jasmine scrambled to her feet. One more thing, Victoria said. When Maya is better, I want you to come visit her. She asks about you. Miss Jasmine is apparently the only good memory she has from that flight. Jasmine's voice broke. I would be honored. 3 weeks later, Victoria held a press conference. The room was packed with journalists, cameras, microphones. The story of what had happened to Maya Washington had dominated the news cycle for days. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone wanted to know what the airline would do. Victoria stepped to the podium and the room fell silent. Thank you for coming. Before I take questions, I want to share something personal. She took a breath. 3 weeks ago, my 5-year-old daughter Maya boarded one of our flights as an unaccompanied minor. She was excited, nervous, trying so hard to be brave. I trusted this airline, my airline, to keep her safe. Her voice wavered slightly, then steadied. What happened instead is that one of our senior flight attendants harassed my daughter from the moment she boarded. She questioned whether Maya belonged in business class. She denied her water while serving champagne to other passengers. She humiliated a scared, lonely child who was doing something incredibly brave. The room was absolutely silent. And then, when Maya got out of her seat during turbulence to retrieve a comfort toy, this flight attendant grabbed her arm and yanked her down with enough force to fracture both bones in her forearm. My 5-year-old now has a cast she'll wear for 6 weeks. She has nightmares. She's afraid of airplanes. She's afraid of adults in uniforms. Victoria paused, composing herself. I fired that flight attendant before we landed. But as I sat in the hospital with my daughter, I realized firing one employee wasn't enough. Because this woman had been with our company for 23 years, 17 formal complaints, 43 incident reports, and nothing was done. She looked directly into the cameras. So today, I'm announcing the Maya Initiative, named for my daughter, a complete overhaul of how we handle passenger complaints, how we train our employees, and how we protect the most vulnerable travelers, our children. She outlined the changes. Third-party oversight, mandatory anti-bias training, new protocols for unaccompanied minors, a passenger hotline for real-time reporting. Then she opened the floor to questions. Mrs. Washington, do you believe Brenda Callahan's behavior was racially motivated? I believe Brenda Callahan treated my daughter differently because of what she looked like. Whether you call that racism or bias or discrimination, the effect is the same. A child was hurt. What do you say to critics who argue you're only making these changes because it was your daughter who was affected? Victoria didn't flinch. I say they're partially right. It shouldn't have taken my daughter being hurt for me to see how broken our system was. That's a failure I have to live with. But I'm choosing to use my position and my privilege to ensure no other child experiences what Maya experienced. If that makes me a hypocrite, so be it. At least I'm a hypocrite who's actually doing something. Is there any update on potential criminal charges against Brenda Callahan? That's a matter for law enforcement. I can tell you that my family is cooperating fully with the investigation. The press conference lasted an hour. By the time it was over, Victoria was exhausted, but also energized. This was just the beginning. There was so much more work to do. But for now, she had somewhere more important to be. She flew back to Dallas that night, walked into Maya's hospital room, and found her daughter awake and drawing with her good hand. Mommy, you came back. I told you I would, baby. I'll always come back. Maya held up her drawing. It was a picture of an airplane with a small figure inside, wearing what appeared to be a tutu dress and light-up shoes. That's me, Maya explained. I'm flying. And look." She pointed to another figure in the drawing standing next to the small one. "That's Miss Jasmine. She's making sure the mean lady can't hurt anyone anymore." Victoria looked at the drawing at her daughter's interpretation of what had happened and felt tears slide down her cheeks. "That's beautiful, baby. The most beautiful picture I've ever seen." "Mommy, can I ask you something?" "Anything, sweetheart." "When my arm gets better, can we go on an airplane again? I'm still scared. But Miss Jasmine said being brave means doing things even when you're scared, and I want to be brave, like you." Victoria pulled her daughter close, mindful of the cast, mindful of the healing that still needed to happen, physical and emotional. "We can do whatever you want, Maya Rose Washington, because you're the bravest girl in the whole world, and nothing is ever going to change that." Outside the hospital, the sun was setting over Dallas, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In cities across America, people were watching Victoria's press conference, talking about the Maya initiative, sharing their own stories of discrimination and mistreatment. Something was shifting, something was changing, and it had started with one little girl in light-up shoes who just wanted to visit her grandma. 4 weeks after the incident, Marcus Henderson's investigation uncovered something that changed everything. He called Victoria at 6 a.m., his voice tight with controlled fury. "We found them. The passengers. Not 17, not 43, 112. Victoria nearly dropped her phone. "What did you say?" 112 passengers over 23 years. We've been able to track down and interview 87 so far. Every single story matches the pattern. Cold service, hostile questioning, denial of basic amenities, and every single one was dismissed, ignored, or actively suppressed. How is that possible? Our records only show... Your records show what Brenda and her network wanted them to show. There was a whole system, Victoria. Flight attendants who would corroborate her version of events, supervisors who would lose paperwork, a board member who would intervene when complaints got too close to triggering real consequences. Victoria sat down heavily. 112 passengers, 112 people who had been hurt, humiliated, made to feel like they didn't belong. And her company had let it happen. What do we do now? Now we go public, not just with the Maya initiative that's policy. This needs to be accountability, real accountability. I want to hold a press conference with some of the victims. Let them tell their stories. Let the world see exactly how deep this goes. That will destroy us. The lawsuits alone. The lawsuits are coming anyway. The question is whether you get ahead of this or let it consume you. Victoria, you built this company. You can rebuild it. But not if you try to hide from the truth. Victoria closed her eyes. She thought about Maya still recovering, still waking from nightmares. She thought about the drawing her daughter had made the little girl in light-up shoes, flying, despite her fear. Do it. Arrange the press conference. I want to be there. I want to look those passengers in the eye and apologize personally. That's a risk. Legally. I don't care about the legal risk. I care about doing what's right. Set it up. She hung up and immediately made another call. Daniel, we need to talk about the compensation fund. 2 days later, Victoria stood in front of a room full of cameras, flanked by Marcus Henderson and 3 of the passengers his team had found. The first was Dorothy Mae Williams, 73 years old, who had been flying to her grandson's college graduation 5 years ago. Brenda had accused her of trying to steal magazines from the business class cabin and had her searched by security upon landing. Dorothy had missed her grandson walking across the stage. The second was James Chen, 45, a software engineer who had been interrogated for 20 minutes about how he could afford a first-class ticket. Brenda had called the air marshal to question him. He'd been so humiliated that he hadn't flown for 2 years afterward. The third was Aaliyah Foster, 19, who at 14 had been flying alone to visit her father. Brenda had made her cry in front of the entire cabin by insisting she was in the wrong seat and must have stolen someone else's boarding pass. Aaliyah's father had filed a complaint. It had been dismissed within a week. Each of them told their story. Each of them cried. Each of them said the same thing. Finally, someone was listening. When it was Victoria's turn to speak, she didn't read from a script. I built this company 22 years ago with a simple principle. Every passenger deserves dignity and respect. Somewhere along the way, I failed that principle. Not because I stopped believing in it, but because I didn't do enough to enforce it. I trusted systems that were broken. I trusted people who were more interested in protecting themselves than protecting passengers. She looked directly at Dorothy, at James, at Aaliyah. To every passenger who was hurt by Brenda Callahan or anyone else under my watch, I am sorry. Not sorry that you're speaking up. Sorry that you had to. Sorry that it took my own daughter being hurt for me to see what was happening in my own company. I can't undo what was done to you. But I can promise you this, every single complaint will be re-examined. Every single victim will be compensated. And every single person who helped cover this up will be held accountable. Starting with me. The press conference lasted 2 hours. By the time it was over, American Eagle Airways stock had dropped 14%. But something else had happened too. Other passengers had started coming forward, not just from Victoria's airline, from others. The hashtag #MeTooFlying was trending. People were sharing stories of discrimination, harassment, mistreatment that had happened to them in the skies. Victoria had started something bigger than she'd intended, and she wasn't sure yet whether that was good or terrifying. That same evening, Brenda Callahan received a summons. She was being charged with assault of a minor causing bodily harm. If convicted, she faced up to 5 years in prison. Her court-appointed attorney had been blunt. The video evidence is overwhelming. Multiple witnesses, a fractured arm on a 5-year-old. The best we can hope for is a plea deal. You plead guilty to misdemeanor assault, serve 6 months, and maybe you avoid prison. 6 months, I can't go to jail. I have bills. I have Mrs. Callahan. You broke a child's arm. On camera. In front of 50 witnesses. The only reason you're not facing felony charges is because the prosecution is willing to consider mitigating factors, but that offer won't last forever. Brenda sat alone in her apartment after the lawyer left, surrounded by termination paperwork, legal documents, and the accumulated debris of a life falling apart. She hadn't left the apartment in a week, couldn't face the world. Someone had spray-painted child abuser on her front door. Her neighbors wouldn't look at her. Her own sister had stopped returning her calls. She picked up her phone and scrolled through her contacts, names she'd known for decades, friends or people she'd thought were friends. None of them answered anymore, except one. Richard Whitmore, the disgraced board member, the one who'd protected her for years. He'd called her 3 times since the incident, but she hadn't answered. She'd been too ashamed. Her finger hovered over his name. Then, before she could stop herself, she pressed dial. He answered on the second ring. Brenda, I wondered when you'd call. Richard, I don't know what to do. They want me to plead guilty. They want me to go to jail. I know. My lawyer's been tracking the case. Can you help me? You always said if I ever needed anything. Brenda. His voice was cold, different than she remembered. Do you understand what you've done, not just to that child, to me? I lost my board seat. My reputation is destroyed. 20 years of building influence gone. Because of you. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. That's the problem, isn't it? You never meant for anything to happen. You just did what you wanted, and I cleaned up the messes. 17 complaints, Brenda. 17 times I intervened to save your job, and this is how you repay me. Richard, please, don't call me again. The line went dead. Brenda stared at her phone, something cracking open inside her. All those years she'd thought she had protection, thought she was valued, thought someone had her back. She'd been a tool, used and discarded the moment she became inconvenient. She thought about taking a pill, just one, then another, then however many it took to make the world go quiet. But something stopped her. Not hope, she was far past hope. Something else, something that felt almost like curiosity. She wanted to see how this ended, wanted to know if there was anything left of her life worth salvaging. She put down the pills, made herself a cup of tea, and for the first time since it happened, she let herself really think about what she'd done, not the excuses, not the justifications, the truth. 6 weeks after the incident, Maya Washington took her first steps without her mother hovering within arm's reach. They were at a playground near Grandma Rose's house in Atlanta. Maya had been hesitant to leave the house at first. Too many strangers, too many adults in uniforms, too many reminders of what had happened in the sky. But today something was different. Today she saw a little girl on the swings, braids flying, laughing with pure joy. "Mommy, can I go play?" Victoria's heart stuttered. Every instinct screamed to say no, to keep Maya close, to protect her from every possible danger. But she thought about what the child therapist had said. Maya needs to rediscover her confidence. She needs to learn that the world can be safe again, and she can only learn that by experiencing it. "Yes, baby, you can go play." Maya took 3 steps, then turned back. "Will you watch me?" "Every second. I'm right here." Maya nodded. Then she not ran, but walked toward the swings. She stopped next to the laughing girl, said something Victoria couldn't hear. The girl smiled, pointed to the empty swing next to her, and Maya climbed on. Victoria watched her daughter pump her legs, gaining height, gaining speed. She watched the hesitation fade and something else take its place. Not fearlessness. Maya might never be truly fearless again. But courage. Real courage. The kind that knows fear and pushes forward anyway. Grandma Rose came to stand beside Victoria, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. "She's going to be okay." "How do you know?" "Because she's a Washington woman, and Washington women don't break. They bend, they hurt, they heal, but they don't break." Victoria took the coffee, her eyes never leaving Maya. "Mama, I keep thinking about what would have happened if I'd been there. If I'd been sitting with her instead of in first class. If I'd just broken my own rule. Then what? You would have protected her from that one woman on that one flight. And the next time, and the time after that, baby, you can't be with her every second of her life. What you can do is make the world safer for her. And that's exactly what you're doing." Victoria thought about the Maya initiative, about the 112 passengers who'd come forward, about the legislation that 3 congresspeople had introduced based on the publicity around Maya's case, the Flying Rights Act they were calling it. Mandatory anti-discrimination training for all airline employees, independent oversight of passenger complaints, harsh penalties for airlines that covered up patterns of abuse. Her daughter's broken arm was changing the entire industry. "I got a letter today," Victoria said, "from Brenda Callahan." Rose stiffened. "What did it say?" "I haven't opened it yet. I don't know if I want to." "What are you afraid of?" Victoria thought about the question. "I don't know. Maybe I'm afraid she'll apologize, and I'll have to decide whether to forgive her." "Can you?" "I don't think so. Not yet. Maybe not ever." Rose nodded slowly. "Then don't open it. You're not obligated to forgive anyone, Victoria. Forgiveness is a gift, not a requirement, and some wounds are too fresh for gifts." Victoria slipped the envelope back into her pocket. Rose was right. She wasn't ready. And that was okay. On the swings, Maya was laughing now, her voice carrying across the playground like music. The other girl was laughing too. They were playing a game, something about who could swing higher, who could touch the sky. Victoria felt tears slide down her cheeks. Not sad tears. Something else. Relief, maybe. Or gratitude. Or just the overwhelming sensation of watching her daughter remember how to be a child again. That night, after Maya was asleep, Victoria finally opened Brenda Callahan's letter. It was handwritten, 3 pages, shaky penmanship that suggested the writer's hands had been trembling. "Mrs. Washington," it began, "I know I have no right to contact you. I know nothing I say can undo what I did, but I need you to know that I understand now. I understand what I took from your daughter. Not just the use of her arm for 6 weeks, something deeper. Something I didn't have the words for until I started seeing my own therapist." Victoria read on, something complicated unfolding in her chest. "I've been in therapy twice a week since the incident. Court-ordered at first, but I kept going. I needed to understand why I did what I did. Not to excuse it, there is no excuse, but to make sure I never do it again. My therapist says I was angry at people I couldn't reach, so I took it out on people I could. I lost my family's money years ago, lost my status, lost everything I thought made me valuable. And instead of dealing with that loss, I punished passengers who reminded me of what I didn't have anymore. Passengers who seemed happy, successful, like they belonged in spaces I could only serve. Your daughter reminded me most of all. Not because of anything she did, because of who she was, a child who seemed so loved, so confident, so sure of her place in the world. I hated her for that. I hated a 5-year-old girl because she had something I lost decades ago. Victoria had to stop reading. Her hands were shaking now too. She forced herself to continue. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to drop the charges or speak to the prosecutor on my behalf. Whatever happens to me, I've earned. I'm writing because I want you to know that I'm sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry for every second of pain I caused your daughter. Sorry for every passenger I ever hurt. Sorry for the person I became and the person I was too afraid to look at in the mirror. I hope Maya recovers completely. I hope she flies again someday. I hope she never lets what I did define who she is or what she believes about the world. And I hope somehow that my story can serve as a warning to others. Other people carrying the same poison I carried. Other people taking out their pain on the vulnerable. Maybe if they see what happened to me, really see it, they'll choose differently. That's all I have to offer. That's my only redemption. The hope that my destruction can prevent someone else's. The letter was signed simply, Brenda Callahan. Victoria sat with the letter for a long time after she finished reading. She didn't know what to do with the feelings it had stirred up. Anger was still there, it would probably always be there. But something else too. Something that might have been pity, or understanding, or just the recognition that people were complicated, even people who did terrible things. She put the letter in a drawer. She would decide what to do with it later. Right now, she had more important things to focus on, like her daughter, like her company, like changing an industry that had allowed one bitter, broken woman to hurt passengers for 23 years. Aww. 8 weeks after the incident, Brenda Callahan stood before a judge and pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, victims, curious members of the public. Victoria was there too, with Marcus Henderson at her side. She'd been asked to give a victim impact statement, but she'd declined. Instead, she'd asked if Maya could submit something, a drawing made with her good hand of the airplane where everything had happened. The judge had allowed it. Mrs. Callahan, the judge said, looking at Brenda over the rim of his glasses. I've read your plea agreement. I've reviewed the evidence. I've seen the video that half the country has now seen. And I've read every single letter submitted on your behalf, all 3 of them, as well as the 117 letters submitted by passengers who say they experienced similar treatment from you over the years. Brenda stood with her head bowed, her court-appointed attorney at her side. Before I render my sentence, I want to be clear about something. This case is not just about one incident on one airplane. It's about a pattern of behavior that was allowed to continue for more than 2 decades because people in positions of authority chose to look the other way. You bear responsibility for your actions, but so does the system that enabled you. He paused, looking at the drawing Maya had submitted. A picture of a little girl with a broken arm crying in an airplane aisle. That said, the person who actually broke this child's arm was you. The person who humiliated her, denied her basic dignity, and physically harmed her was you, and for that there must be consequences. Brenda Callahan, I sentence you to 18 months in county jail with 12 months suspended. You will serve 6 months in custody, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. You will complete an additional 200 hours of community service, specifically working with children's advocacy organizations. You will pay restitution in the amount of $50,000 to the victim's family, and you will be permanently prohibited from working in any customer-facing role for any airline or transportation company. Brenda swayed slightly but didn't collapse. She'd expected this, or something like it. Do you have anything to say before you're remanded to custody? Brenda looked up. Her eyes found Victoria in the gallery. For a long moment, neither woman looked away. I'm sorry, Brenda said. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. I know that's not enough. It will never be enough. But I want everyone who's been hurt by me to know that I see them now. I see what I did, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to become someone different than the person I was on that plane. The bailiff stepped forward. Brenda held out her wrists for the handcuffs. As she was led out of the courtroom, she passed within 3 feet of Victoria. Their eyes met one more time. Brenda mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." Victoria didn't respond. She wasn't sure what she would be thanking Brenda for. For the apology, for the accountability, for the reminder that sometimes the worst people are just broken people who never learned to fix themselves. She didn't know. Maybe she would never know. But as she left the courthouse and stepped into the bright sunshine, she felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness that was still far away if it was coming at all, but maybe the beginning of peace, the sense that justice, imperfect as it was, had been served. 10 weeks after the incident, Victoria flew to Washington, D.C. to testify before Congress. The Flying Rights Act was being debated in committee, and Victoria had been asked to share her story, her company's failures, and the reforms she'd implemented. She'd prepared remarks, but when she sat down at the witness table and looked at the senators assembled before her, she set her papers aside. "My daughter is 5 years old," she began. 10 weeks ago, she boarded one of my company's flights to visit her grandmother. She was excited. She was scared. She was trying so hard to be brave. What happened to her on that flight broke something inside her. Not just her arm that's healing, something deeper. Her belief that adults could be trusted. Her confidence that she belonged in any space she chose to occupy. Her fundamental sense of safety in the world. "I'm here today because I don't want any other child to go through what Maya went through. I'm here because 112 passengers were hurt by the same employee who hurt my daughter, and our systems failed every single one of them. I'm here because this isn't just about one airline or one flight attendant. It's about an industry that has allowed discrimination and abuse to flourish in the name of customer service." She talked for 45 minutes. She answered questions for another 2 hours. She showed the committee Maya's drawing, the one that had been submitted to the court. Several senators wiped their eyes. By the time she was done, the committee chair had announced that she was moving the Flying Rights Act to a full-floor vote. It passed the Senate 3 weeks later. The House followed 2 weeks after that. The president signed it into law on a bright Tuesday afternoon in the Rose Garden. Victoria was there standing in the front row. Maya was there too, her cast finally off, holding her mother's hand. "This law," the president said, "ensures that no passenger will ever be treated as less than human because of what they look like, where they come from, or what seat they're sitting in." It's named the Maya Act after a brave little girl who taught this country that the most powerful voice for change sometimes belongs to the smallest among us. He looked at Maya and smiled. "Maya, would you like to come up here?" Victoria's heart stopped. They hadn't prepared for this. Maya had been so nervous about crowds, about attention, about anything that reminded her of what happened. But Maya squeezed her mother's hand, took a deep breath, and walked up to the podium. The president knelt down to her level. "Maya, I want to thank you. Because of you, millions of children will be safer when they fly. That's a pretty amazing thing for a 5-year-old to accomplish." Maya looked at him with her big brown eyes, then leaned toward the microphone. "I'm 6 now," she said. "I had my birthday." The crowd laughed. The president laughed. Even Victoria laughed, tears streaming down her face. 6 years old, the president corrected himself. "My apologies, Maya. 6-year-olds are clearly much more accomplished than 5-year-olds. Maya nodded seriously. "My mommy says I'm the bravest girl in the world." "Your mommy is absolutely right." He handed Maya a pen, the pen he'd used to sign the law. "This is for you, a reminder that you changed the world." Maya took the pen, looked at it, then looked back at the president. "Can my friend Miss Jasmine have one too? She tried to help me on the airplane when no one else would." The president glanced at his staff, who were already scrambling to find another ceremonial pen. "Miss Jasmine will absolutely get one. Anyone else you want to thank?" Maya thought for a moment. "Mr. Bobby, he was nice too. And Dr. Kim. She fixed my arm. And the man with the phone, he took a video so people would believe me." "Marcus Henderson," the president said, nodding toward the civil rights attorney standing in the crowd. "Yes, he deserves a pen too." Maya smiled, satisfied. Then she turned back to the microphone and said the words that would be replayed on news broadcasts for days. My mommy says everyone deserves to be treated nice, even if they look different or talk different or don't have a lot of money. I think my mommy's right. I think if everyone was nice to everyone, maybe no one would get hurt. She stepped back from the microphone, took her mother's hand again, and the rose garden erupted in applause. Victoria looked down at her daughter, this small, fierce, incredible person who had endured so much and somehow come out stronger, who had taken her pain and transformed it into something that would protect children for generations to come. I'm proud of you, baby. I'm proud of you too, Mommy. They walked out of the rose garden together into the bright sunshine, into a world that was just a little bit better than it had been 10 weeks ago. And somewhere in a county jail in Texas, Brenda Callahan watched the ceremony on a small TV in the common area. She saw the little girl she'd hurt standing at a podium, changing laws, changing the world. She saw the mother she'd made an enemy of being celebrated as a hero. She expected to feel bitter, expected to feel resentful, expected the familiar poison to rise up in her chest. Instead, she felt something else, something unexpected: pride. Not in herself, never in herself, not anymore, but in what had come from her destruction, in the good that had grown from her evil, in the proof that sometimes, somehow, even the worst things could lead to something better. She turned away from the TV and walked back to her cell. She had a therapy session in an hour. She had community service to plan. She had the rest of her life to figure out. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing would ever be easy again. But maybe, just maybe, it could still mean something. 3 months after the White House ceremony, Victoria received a phone call that stopped her cold. Mrs. Washington, this is Warden Patricia Collins from Harris County Correctional Facility. I'm calling about Brenda Callahan. Victoria's grip tightened on her phone. What about her? She's asked to speak with you. She says she has information you need to hear about your company, about other employees. I have nothing to say to that woman. I understand, but Mrs. Washington, in my 20 years running this facility, I've seen a lot of inmates. Most of them perform remorse. Mrs. Callahan is different. Whatever she wants to tell you, I believe it's genuine. Victoria almost said no, almost hung up, but something in the warden's voice made her pause. What kind of information? She didn't say, only that it involves ongoing safety issues at American Eagle. She specifically used the word children. Victoria felt ice slide down her spine. When can I see her? Tomorrow, 2 p.m. I'll make the arrangements. That night, Victoria couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the reasons she shouldn't go, about how Maya's therapist had said that engaging with Brenda could reopen wounds that were finally starting to heal, about how her lawyers had strongly advised against any contact, but the word kept echoing in her mind. Children. If there was even a chance that other children were at risk, she had to know. At 6 a.m., she made a decision. She called her assistant. Clear my schedule for tomorrow. I'm going to Texas. The visitation room at Harris County Correctional smelled like industrial cleaner and despair. Victoria sat at a metal table, her hands folded in front of her waiting. She'd dressed simply, no jewelry, no designer labels. She didn't want to give Brenda any ammunition for resentment. The door opened. Brenda Callahan looked like a different person. Gone was the sharp-edged woman with the perfect hair and immaculate uniform. In her place was someone smaller, older, wearing prison-issue scrubs and an expression that had lost all its armor. She sat down across from Victoria. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Thank you for coming, Brenda finally said. Her voice was hoarse, uncertain. The warden said you have information about my company. I do, but first I need to say something. I've been practicing it for weeks, and if I don't say it now, I'll lose my nerve. Victoria waited. What I did to Maya was the worst thing I've ever done, but it wasn't the only thing, and I wasn't the only one doing it. I know, we've identified 112 victims. No, you don't understand. There are others. Other flight attendants, other employees, a whole network that I was part of. We protected each other, covered for each other. Some of them are still working for you. Victoria's blood went cold. Names, I need names. I'll give you everything. But I need you to understand something first. This isn't just about racism or bias. It's about a culture, a system that rewards certain behaviors and punishes others. You can fire every person I name, and the culture will just recreate itself. You have to change the roots, not just cut the branches. How do you know so much about organizational culture? I've had 4 months with nothing to do but read and think. The prison library has surprisingly good business books. A ghost of a smile crossed Brenda's face. Plus therapy. Lots of therapy. Turns out when you take away someone's distractions, they have to actually look at themselves. Victoria studied the woman in front of her, looking for deception, looking for manipulation, looking for any sign that this was a performance. She couldn't find one. Give me the names. Brenda pulled out a handwritten list from her pocket. 12 names. Employees who had helped her suppress complaints. Employees who had exhibited similar patterns of discrimination. Employees who had been protected by the same network that had protected her. There's more, Brenda said, as Victoria scanned the list. There's going to be an incident. I don't know when exactly, but I know it's coming. What kind of incident? One of the names on that list, Jennifer Hartley. She's worse than I was. Much worse. She's been talking for years about wanting to do something big, something that would send a message to the passengers she thinks don't belong in premium cabins. Send a message how... I don't know the specifics, but she's been collecting grievances, building resentment, and she's smart enough to not get caught the way I did. No witnesses, no videos, just accidents that look like accidents. Victoria's hands were shaking now. Why are you telling me this? Because a child is going to get hurt, maybe already has been hurt, and I can't live with that on my conscience anymore. I've caused enough damage, Mrs. Washington. This is the only way I know how to start making it right. Victoria looked at the list again. Jennifer Hartley. The name meant nothing to her. Just another employee among thousands. But if Brenda was right, that name could mean everything to a family she hadn't met yet, a child she didn't know. I'm going to have this investigated, Victoria said. If you're lying to me... I'm not. I wish I was. I wish I could tell you that I was the only monster working for your airline. But the truth is, I was just the one who got caught. Victoria stood up. She needed to get out of this room, needed to breathe air that didn't smell like desperation and regret. One more thing, Brenda said as Victoria reached for the door. How is she? Maya. Victoria turned back. She's healing. Slowly. She still has nightmares sometimes, but she's strong. Stronger than you could have imagined. I dream about her too. About her screaming. About the sound her arm made when it... Brenda's voice broke. I hear it every night. I'll hear it for the rest of my life. Good. Victoria walked out without looking back. She called Marcus Henderson from the car. I need you to investigate 12 employees immediately. And one of them might be planning something involving children. I need this done yesterday. What's going on, Victoria? I just got information from Brenda Callahan. She says there's a network, other employees who share her views and have been protected the same way she was. You believe her? Victoria thought about the broken woman she'd just left behind, the woman who had nothing left to gain from lying. Yes, I do. Marcus's investigation moved fast. Within 48 hours, he'd found enough evidence to terminate 4 of the 12 employees on Brenda's list. Complaints that had been buried, incidents that had been covered up. The same pattern over and over. But Jennifer Hartley was different. Her file was clean, spotless. 20 years of service without a single formal complaint. Commendations from supervisors. Positive passenger feedback forms. She's either innocent or she's very, very good at hiding, Marcus said during their briefing call. Brenda said she was smart enough to not get caught. Then we need to catch her in the act. I can put someone on the inside, someone she doesn't know is watching. Victoria thought about it. The legal implications, the privacy concerns, the possibility that Brenda was wrong and they'd be targeting an innocent employee. But then she thought about Maya, about the screaming, about the crack of bone. Do it. 2 weeks later, Jasmine Torres boarded a flight from Los Angeles to Miami. She wasn't on the manifest as a crew member. She was flying as a passenger with dark skin and a first-class ticket wearing casual clothes that didn't match the expectations of what a first-class traveler should look like. Jennifer Hartley was the lead flight attendant. Jasmine had been briefed. Watch for patterns. Document everything. Don't intervene unless absolutely necessary. She'd also been given a recording device disguised as a pen, and a panic button connected directly to the airline security team. Be careful, Victoria had told her before she left. If Brenda's right about this woman, she's dangerous. I can handle myself. I know you can. That's why I asked you to do this. But still, be careful. The flight started normally. Jennifer Hartley greeted passengers with professional warmth. She offered champagne. She stowed bags. She did everything a lead flight attendant was supposed to do. But Jasmine noticed things, small things. The way Jennifer's smile tightened when she reached certain passengers. The way her eyes cataloged appearances, making calculations, rendering judgments. The way she looked at the young black girl sitting alone in seat 4A. The girl couldn't have been more than 7, flying unaccompanied just like Maya had been, clutching a stuffed elephant to her chest, eyes wide with the nervous excitement of a child on an adventure. Jennifer stopped at her seat. "Are you sure you're in the right place, sweetie?" Jasmine's blood ran cold. Those words, those exact words. "Yes, ma'am. This is my seat. First class is for grown-ups with important business. Did someone put you here by mistake? My daddy bought me the ticket. He said I deserve the best." Something flickered across Jennifer's face. Annoyance, resentment. The same ugly emotion that Jasmine had seen on Brenda's face all those months ago. "Well, we'll see about that." Jennifer moved on, but Jasmine saw her whisper something to another flight attendant. Saw the look they exchanged. Saw the nod that meant something had been set in motion. Jasmine pulled out her phone and typed a message to Marcus Henderson. "She's targeting a child. Seat 4A. I'm intervening." The response came immediately. "Document first. We need evidence." Jasmine's hands were shaking. Everything in her screamed to protect that little girl right now. But if she moved too soon, Jennifer would have deniability. They'd been down this road before. Complaints filed and dismissed, word against word. She needed proof. The flight continued. Jasmine watched Jennifer deny the little girl a drink while serving champagne to the white businessman next to her. Watched her ignore the call button when the child pressed it. Watched her speak to other passengers with warmth that evaporated when she addressed seat 4A. The girl was starting to look scared. Her stuffed elephant was clutched tighter. Her eyes were getting shiny. And then Jennifer made her move. "There seems to be a problem with your ticket," she announced loud enough for the surrounding passengers to hear. "I'm going to need you to come with me." "What?" "But my daddy bought—" "Now please, we need to sort this out." The little girl looked around desperately, searching for an adult who would help. Her eyes landed on Jasmine. That was when Jasmine made her decision. She stood up and walked directly into Jennifer's path. "Is there a problem here?" Jennifer's expression flickered surprise assessment dismissal. "This is a crew matter. Please return to your seat." "I'm not just a passenger." Jasmine pulled out her identification. "I'm Jasmine Torres, Customer Experience Manager for American Eagle Airways, and I'm here specifically to observe service standards on this flight." Jennifer's face went white. "This child has a valid ticket. I confirmed it with the gate agent before boarding, so I'd like to know exactly what problem you're trying to sort out." There was a concern. There was no concern. There was harassment, exactly the same pattern that got your friend Brenda Callahan sent to prison. The passengers around them had gone silent. Phones were coming out. The scene was being recorded from multiple angles. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Then let me refresh your memory. Denial of service, hostile questioning, attempts to remove passengers who don't fit your idea of who belongs in first class. Sound familiar?" "You can't prove anything. I just recorded the last 3 hours of your shift." Jasmine held up her pen. "Every word, every action, every time you treated that child differently than the other passengers. You want to tell me again that I can't prove anything?" Jennifer's mouth opened. closed. Her hands were shaking now. This is entrapment. This is justice, and it's been a long time coming. The captain's voice came over the intercom, interrupting the confrontation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Morrison. We've been asked to return to Los Angeles due to a security concern. Please remain in your seats. Jennifer looked around wildly. You can't do this. I have rights. I have a union. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. 2 air marshals appeared from coach class where they'd been seated as backup. They moved toward Jennifer with professional efficiency. Ma'am, we need you to come with us. I haven't done anything wrong. That's for the investigators to determine. Please come with us quietly. Jennifer was escorted to the back of the plane. As she passed Jasmine, she leaned close and hissed, You think this is over? There are more of us than you know. You can't stop all of us. Maybe not, but I can stop you. When the plane landed, police were waiting. Jennifer Hartley was taken into custody. The investigation would eventually reveal that she'd been involved in at least 37 incidents over her 20-year career. Incidents that had been hidden, suppressed, or attributed to other causes. But more importantly, the little girl in seat 4A was safe. Jasmine knelt beside her as they waited to deplane. Hey there, I'm Jasmine. Are you okay? The girl's eyes were still wet, but she nodded. That lady was really mean. I know, but she can't hurt you now. She can't hurt anyone anymore. Why was she so mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Jasmine's heart cracked open. The same question, the same pain, a different child, but the same wound. You didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart. Not one thing. Some people are just broken inside, and they take it out on people who don't deserve it. That's not your fault. It's never your fault. The girl hugged her stuffed elephant tighter. My daddy says I belong anywhere I want to be. Your daddy is absolutely right. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. When the plane finally emptied, Jasmine stayed behind to call Victoria. It's done. We got her. Is the child okay? Shaken up, but okay. She wasn't physically hurt. Thank God. Victoria's voice was rough with emotion. Thank God you were there. This isn't over, Victoria. Jennifer said something before they took her away. She said there are more, that we can't stop all of them. A long silence. Then we don't stop trying. One at a time, however long it takes. The news of Jennifer Hartley's arrest broke 2 days later. This time there was no video of a child being hurt, no dramatic confrontation recorded by passengers. Just a quiet press release from American Eagle Airways announcing that another employee had been terminated and arrested for discriminatory behavior toward passengers. But the message was clear. The airline was watching. The airline was listening, and the airline would act. Brenda Callahan heard the news in prison. She was in the common room when the story came on TV. Other inmates looked at her, knowing her history, waiting for her reaction. She didn't say anything, just watched the screen with an expression that no one could quite read. Later in her cell, she wrote in the journal her therapist had given her. They caught Jennifer. I don't know if that makes what I did any better. Probably not. But maybe some good came from my destruction after all. Maybe a child didn't get hurt because I spoke up. That doesn't make me a hero. I'm not delusional. I'm still the woman who broke a 5-year-old's arm. I'll always be that woman. But maybe I can be something else too. Maybe I can be a warning, a cautionary tale. The monster who got caught and showed the world what monsters look like when they take off their masks. If my story can stop even one person from becoming what I was, then maybe my life still has some meaning. Maybe. I don't know. I probably won't know for years, if ever. But for the first time since this all started, I have something that feels almost like hope. 6 months after Jennifer Hartley's arrest, Maya Washington walked into Los Angeles International Airport holding her mother's hand. She was almost 7 now. Her arm had long since healed, the nightmares had faded, the therapy had helped her build new foundations where the old ones had been destroyed. But she hadn't flown since the day her world shattered, hadn't stepped foot in an airport, hadn't even talked about airplanes except in therapy sessions, where she drew pictures of what happened and practiced saying words like safe and protected and strong. Today was different. Today, She was going to try. "You don't have to do this, baby," Victoria said as they approached the security line. "We can go home right now. No one will think less of you." Maya shook her head. Her braids swung with the motion beads clicking softly. "I want to. Miss Jasmine is waiting for us." That was the plan. Jasmine Torres would meet them at the gate. She'd walk Maya onto the plane herself. She'd stay beside her for the entire flight. And at the end, Maya would have proved to herself that she could do it, that the sky still belonged to her. But first, they had to get through the airport. Maya's steps slowed as they entered the terminal. Her grip on Victoria's hand tightened. "Mommy, I'm scared." "I know, baby. That's okay. What do we say about being scared? Being brave doesn't mean you're never afraid. It means you do things even when you are afraid." "That's my girl. And you know what else?" "What?" "I'm scared too. Every time I step into an airport, I remember that day. I remember getting the call. I remember running through hallways trying to get to you. The fear never fully goes away." "But you still fly." "Yes, because flying is how I get to all the people and places I love. And because letting fear win means letting that woman win. And I refuse to do that." Maya thought about this, her face scrunched up with the effort of processing complicated ideas. "So if I fly, I win. If you fly, you show yourself that you're stronger than what happened to you. And that's the most important victory of all." Maya squared her small shoulders. "Okay, let's go." They made it through security. They made it to the gate. And there, just as promised, was Jasmine Torres wearing her customer experience manager uniform and carrying a gift bag. "Maya, look at you, so grown up." Maya ran to her, throwing her arms around Jasmine's waist. "Miss Jasmine, I missed you." "I missed you too, Princess. I brought you something." She handed Maya the gift bag. Inside was a small pin, a golden pair of wings with the American Eagle logo. "This is a special pin for very special passengers. It means you're part of the flight crew. You're one of us." Maya's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? You want to help me do the safety announcements?" "Yes!" Victoria watched her daughter pin the wings to her shirt, watched her practice saying, "Please return your seat to the upright position," watched the fear transform into excitement. This was healing, real healing. Not the absence of pain, but the choice to grow past it. The boarding announcement came. Maya took a deep breath. "Mommy, will you hold my hand just for the getting on part?" "I'll hold your hand for as long as you want me to, baby, forever if you need." They walked down the jet bridge together. Maya's light-up shoes, new ones, brighter than the old pair, flashed with every step. At the door of the plane, Maya stopped. She looked at the flight attendant standing there in her uniform. A different woman. Not Brenda. Not anyone who would ever hurt her. The flight attendant smiled warmly. "Welcome aboard, Miss Washington. We've been expecting you. Your special seat is ready." Maya looked up at Victoria, then at Jasmine, then back at the airplane. "I can do this," she whispered. "Yes, you can." Maya stepped onto the plane. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't run away. She walked down the aisle, found her seat, first class, next to Jasmine, with Victoria right behind them, and buckled herself in without help. Then she looked out the window at the workers loading luggage at the planes, taxiing on the tarmac, at the endless sky waiting to welcome her. "I'm flying again," she said softly. "I'm really flying again." Victoria wiped her eyes, not caring who saw. "Yes, baby, you really are." The engines roared to life. The plane began to move. And Maya Washington, age 6, survivor of something no child should ever experience, pressed her nose against the window and watched the world grow small beneath her. She wasn't just flying anymore. She was free. When they landed in Orlando, 3 hours later, Maya ran down the jet bridge like she owned it. "That was amazing. Can we do it again? Can we fly somewhere else? I want to fly everywhere." Victoria laughed, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep inside her that hadn't made noise in a very long time. "We can fly anywhere you want, baby. The whole world is waiting for you." A photographer was waiting at the gate, not paparazzi, someone Victoria had hired to capture this moment. Maya's first flight since the incident. Maya's triumph. The photo that ran in newspapers the next day showed a little girl in light-up shoes, golden wings pinned to her shirt arms, raised in victory as she emerged from the jet bridge. The headline read, "Maya Soares' young girl who inspired national legislation takes back the skies." Underneath in smaller print, her mother's airline now leads industry in child safety standards. Victoria saved a copy of that newspaper. She would keep it forever. That night at the hotel in Orlando, after a long day at the theme park and an even longer day of emotions, Maya fell asleep clutching her new wings pin. Victoria sat beside her bed watching her daughter breathe, counting each rise and fall of her chest. "You did it, baby," she whispered. "You really did it." She thought about the journey that had led them here, the horror of that phone call, the rage that had fueled her through those first terrible weeks, the determination to change an entire industry, the fear that Maya would never recover, and now this. A child asleep with a smile on her face, dreaming not of nightmares, but of adventures yet to come. Victoria's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Henderson. "Saw the news? That photo? That smile? This is what it was all for. Congratulations, Victoria. You didn't just save your daughter, you saved yourself too." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. She just sat there in the darkness watching her daughter sleep, feeling something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. Not the absence of pain. Not the erasure of memory. Just peace. The quiet knowledge that she had done everything she could and it had been enough. Tomorrow there would be more work to do, more employees to investigate, more systems to reform, more battles to fight. But tonight, there was just this. A mother, a daughter, a victory earned one brave step at a time, and outside the window, the Florida stars sparkled like a million tiny promises waiting to be kept. 1 year after Maya's triumphant return to the skies, Brenda Callahan walked out of Harris County Correctional Facility, a free woman. She stood at the gates with nothing but a small bag of personal belongings and a notebook filled with journal entries from her time inside. No one was waiting for her. No family, no friends, no former colleagues. She had expected as much. What she hadn't expected was the car parked across the street, or the woman leaning against it. Victoria Washington. Brenda's feet stopped moving. Her heart stopped beating. For a long moment, she couldn't process what she was seeing. "Mrs. Washington." Victoria pushed off from the car and walked toward her. "You look different." "Prison will do that." "So will therapy, I imagine." They stood facing each other, two women whose lives had collided in the most terrible way possible. The destroyer and the destroyed. Except now, standing here in the morning light, the lines between those roles seemed less clear. "Why are you here?" Brenda asked. "Honestly, I don't know. I've asked myself that question 100 times since I got in the car this morning. Part of me wanted to see you suffer, to watch you walk out of those gates with nothing and feel satisfied that justice was served. And the other part..." Victoria took a long breath. The other part remembered something Maya said a few weeks ago. She asked me if the mean lady was sorry for what she did. I told her yes. She asked if that meant I forgave her. I didn't know how to answer. "What did you say?" I told her that forgiveness was complicated, that some things were very hard to forgive, but that holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. That's wise. That's Maya. She's 7 now. She understands more than most adults. Brenda's eyes filled with tears. "How is she? Really?" "She's amazing. She flies all the time now. She wants to be a pilot when she grows up. She says she wants to make sure everyone is safe in the sky. Because of what I did to her. Because of who she is. What you did hurt her, but it didn't define her. She defined herself." They stood in silence for a moment. Cars passed on the street. The world continued turning. "I wrote her a letter," Brenda said. "I never sent it. I didn't know if it would help or hurt, but I wrote it. Everything I wanted to say. Everything I wished I could take back. Do you still have it?" "In my bag. I was going to burn it today, start fresh, leave everything behind." Victoria held out her hand. "Can I read it?" Brenda hesitated. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper worn from being handled so many times. Victoria opened it carefully. "Dear Maya," she read aloud, "you don't know me, or maybe you do. Maybe I'm the monster in your nightmares, the mean lady who hurt you when you were just trying to be brave. If that's who I am in your mind, you're right. I was a monster. I did hurt you, and nothing I say can ever undo that." Victoria's voice wavered, but she continued. "I used to tell myself that I wasn't a bad person, that what I did was an accident, that you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. But that was a lie. The truth is I looked at you and saw everything I resented. Your confidence, your joy, your belief that you belonged in any space you chose. I hated you for having what I had lost, and so I tried to take it from you. That was the most shameful thing I've ever done. Not the moment I hurt your arm, though. That was terrible enough. The shame is everything that came before. Every cold look, every denied drink, every question designed to make you feel small. I spent years doing that to people like you. People whose only crime was existing in spaces I thought they didn't deserve. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to understand. How could you? You were 5 years old. You just wanted your teddy bear. I'm writing this because I want you to know that you won, not because I'm in prison and you're free. You won because you didn't let me break you. You won because you flew again. You won because you turned my cruelty into something that will protect children for generations. That's not my redemption. That's yours. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and made it into the best thing that will happen to thousands of other kids. You're a hero, Maya Washington, a real one, and I'm honored to have been defeated by you. I hope you never think about me again. I hope you live a life so full of joy that what I did becomes just a small, faded memory. I hope you fly everywhere you want to go and help everyone you meet and become everything you're meant to be. And I hope somehow you can grow up in a world a little bit better than the one I created. Because if you can, then maybe my destruction meant something after all. With regret and respect, Brenda Callahan. Victoria folded the letter and handed it back. That's the most honest thing I've ever read. I had a lot of time to think about who I was, about who I wanted to be, about whether there was any way to bridge the gap between those two people. Is there? I don't know. I hope so, but I know I can't do it alone. Victoria looked at the woman in front of her. Broken, humbled, genuinely changed, or at least genuinely trying to change. She thought about all the reasons she should walk away, all the people who would judge her for what she was about to do, all the ways this could blow up in her face. Then she thought about Maya, about what she would want, about what the version of herself that her daughter looked up to would do. "Get in the car." Brenda blinked. "What?" I said, "Get in the car. I know a restaurant near here that makes decent coffee. We need to talk." "Talk about what?" "About what comes next. For you, for me, for all of this." Brenda didn't move. "Mrs. Washington, I don't understand. Why would you help me?" "Because Maya asked me to." "She asked you to help me." "Not in so many words, but she asked if people who did bad things could become good again. I told her I thought they could if they really tried. She said that was nice, that everyone deserved a second chance if they wanted one. Even monsters. Even monsters, especially if the monsters are trying not to be monsters anymore." Victoria opened the car door. "Are you coming or not?" Brenda took a step forward, then another. Then she was in the car, sitting in the passenger seat, wondering if she was dreaming. Victoria started the engine. "I'm not forgiving you," she said as she pulled away from the curb. "I want to be clear about that. I may never forgive you, but I'm willing to see who you become, and if who you become is someone worth helping, then I'll help you." "Why, after everything I did?" "Because that's what Maya would want, and because I realized something during all of this. Revenge feels good, justice feels better, but rebuilding feels best of all. I rebuilt my company. I rebuilt my daughter's sense of safety. Now maybe I can help rebuild you." "I don't deserve that." "Probably not, but deserve has nothing to do with it. This is about who I want to be, and I want to be someone who builds things, even out of ashes, even out of people who burned everything down." They drove in silence for a few minutes. "What do you want me to do?" Brenda finally asked. "I want you to tell your story. All of it. Not just the worst day, but the years that led up to it. The resentment, the bias, the way you justified what you did to yourself. I want other people to hear it, to recognize it in themselves, to choose differently before they end up where you ended up. You want me to be a cautionary tale. I want you to be a teacher. There's a difference. Is there? A cautionary tale is something people shake their heads at and then forget. A teacher is someone who changes how people think. Which one do you want to be?" Brenda thought about it. About standing in front of rooms full of airline employees telling them about the monster she used to be. About the shame of it. The exposure. The vulnerability. But also about the possibility. The chance to prevent what she'd done from happening again. The opportunity to make her destruction mean something. "I'll do it," she said. "Whatever you need, however long it takes." "Good, because this isn't going to be easy. People are going to hate you. They're going to throw things at you. They're going to call you names and tell you that you don't deserve to be breathing free air." "I know. And you're going to stand there and take it, because that's part of the process. That's part of earning your way back." "I understand." Victoria pulled into a parking lot. "One more thing. If you ever do anything to make me regret this decision, I will destroy you. Not professionally, not financially, personally. I will make it my life's mission to ensure you never know another moment of peace." "I believe you." "Good. Now let's get some coffee. We have a lot of work to do." 6 months later, Brenda Callahan stood in front of a room full of American Eagle Airways employees and told her story. She didn't hold back, didn't sugarcoat, didn't try to make herself look better than she was. She talked about the resentment that had built up over years, the bitterness that poisoned every interaction, the way she'd looked at passengers and judged them based on nothing but appearance. She talked about Maya, about the water she'd denied, about the bathroom she'd blocked, about the moment she'd grabbed that small arm and felt the bone give way. She talked about the sound, the crack that haunted her dreams, the scream that followed her everywhere, and she talked about what came after, the prison, the therapy, the long, slow process of dismantling the person she'd been and trying to build someone better. When she finished, the room was silent. Then a woman in the back raised her hand. "Why should we believe you've changed? How do we know this isn't just an act?" "You don't," Brenda said. "And honestly, you shouldn't trust me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Trust is something I have to earn, and I haven't earned it yet. All I can do is show up, do the work, and hope that someday my actions prove what my words can't." Another hand. "What do you say to the passengers you hurt, the ones who never came forward?" "I say I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. It will never be enough. But I'm sorry, and if any of them ever want to talk to me, to yell at me, to tell me exactly how I made them feel, I'll listen, for as long as they need, because they deserve that. They deserve to be heard." Another hand. "Do you think you deserve forgiveness?" Brenda took a long breath. "No, I don't think I deserve forgiveness, but I've learned that forgiveness isn't really about deserving. It's about the person doing the forgiving, whether they're ready, whether it serves them. I hope someday the people I hurt can forgive me, not for my sake, but for theirs. Because holding on to anger is heavy. It weighs you down, and they've carried enough weight because of me." The session lasted 2 hours. When it was over, several employees came up to shake Brenda's hand. Others walked past without looking at her. Both reactions were fair. Both were deserved. Victoria was waiting in the hallway. "How do you feel?" "Exhausted, exposed, raw." "Good. That means it was real. I don't know if I can do this again. Stand up there and relive the worst thing I've ever done." "You can, and you will, because this is how you make it mean something. This is how you turn destruction into prevention." Brenda nodded slowly. How many more sessions? 12 more airlines have requested you, plus 4 airport authorities, plus a congressional hearing on workplace discrimination in transportation. Congress wants me to testify. They want to hear from someone who is inside the system, someone who can explain how discrimination gets embedded in institutional culture. You're uniquely qualified. I'm uniquely guilty, you mean? That too. But guilt can be useful, if you use it right. Brenda looked at the woman who had every reason to destroy her and had chosen to rebuild her instead. Mrs. Washington, can I ask you something? Victoria. After everything we've been through, you can call me Victoria. Victoria, why are you really doing this? The training programs, the testimonials, the congressional hearing, all of it could happen without involving me. You could have let me disappear, let me fade into obscurity. Why didn't you? Victoria considered the question. Because disappearing would have been the easy way out, for both of us. You would have gotten to escape your past, and I would have gotten to pretend you didn't exist. But easy isn't the same as right. What do you mean? The world needs to see that redemption is possible, that people who do terrible things can become people who do good things. Not because it excuses what they did, but because it gives hope. Hope that the darkness in us isn't permanent. Hope that we can change. Hope that the worst thing we've ever done doesn't have to be the last thing we ever are. And if I fail, if I fall back into who I was, then you'll have proved everyone who doubted you right, and I'll have to live with the fact that I gave you a chance you didn't deserve. That's a big risk. Yes, it is, but Maya taught me something important. Sometimes you have to be brave even when you're scared. Sometimes you have to take risks that don't make sense. Sometimes you have to believe in people who haven't earned it yet. I won't let you down. Don't tell me. Show me. 2 years later, Maya Washington celebrated her 9th birthday with a party that made national news. Not because of the celebrity guests, though there were several. Not because of the elaborate decorations, though her mother had spared no expense. The party made news because of the guest list. Every single one of the 112 passengers who had been identified as victims of Brenda Callahan's discrimination was invited. 63 of them came. They came from all over the country, different ages, different backgrounds, different stories, but all connected by a shared experience of being made to feel like they didn't belong. Maya stood at the front of the party, her pink dress matching her pink cast from when she'd broken her arm. Wait, no, that was years ago. Now she was healthy, strong, wearing a golden dress that sparkled when she moved. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice clear and confident. "My mommy told me what happened to you. She told me about the mean lady who hurt you too. I'm sorry you went through that. Nobody deserves to feel like they don't belong." The room was silent, watching this small person speak with the poise of someone 3 times her age. "But you're here now, and I'm here, and we're all together. That means we won." Right? We took the bad thing and made it into a party. That's what winning looks like. Dorothy Mae Williams, the 73-year-old grandmother who had missed her grandson's graduation, wiped her eyes. "You're something special, Maya Washington." "I know," Maya said with a grin. "My mommy tells me every day." The room laughed. The tension broke. And for the next 4 hours, strangers who shared a terrible bond became something like friends. Victoria watched from the side, Grandma Rose beside her. "She's going to change the world someday," Rose said. "She already has, Mama. She already has." Near the end of the party, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Brenda Callahan stood there uncertain, holding a small gift box. She hadn't been invited, not directly, but word had reached her about the party and she'd made a decision. The room noticed her. Conversations stopped. Eyes narrowed. Victoria started to move forward to intervene to protect her guests from any discomfort. But Maya got there first. She walked up to Brenda, looked up at her and said, "Are you the mean lady?" Brenda's face crumpled. "Yes, I am. You hurt me." "I did, and I'm so sorry." "I know. My mommy showed me your letter. I read it a lot of times." "You did?" "Yeah. It made me sad. Then it made me angry. Then it made me think." "What did you think about—" Maya tilted her head, considering. I thought about what I would do if I was you, if I did something really, really bad and I couldn't take it back. I think I would want someone to give me another chance, even if I didn't deserve it. She held out her hand. Do you want some cake? We have chocolate. It's my favorite. Brenda stared at the small hand reaching up to her. This child she had hurt, this girl she had broken, offering her cake at her birthday party. I don't know if I should. You came all this way. It would be rude not to have cake. Brenda took her hand. Maya led her into the party past the staring faces of 63 people who had been hurt by this woman. Past Victoria, who watched with an expression of cautious hope. Past Grandma Rose, who shook her head in amazement. She led her to the cake table and handed her a plate. The frosting is the best part, Maya said. Don't tell anyone, but I always eat it first. Brenda took a bite. Chocolate frosting, the best part. And for the first time in 3 years, she smiled. A real smile. Not performed, not calculated, just genuine human joy at being included, at being accepted, at being given a chance she absolutely did not deserve. Maya was already running back to her friends, her golden dress sparkling her light-up shoes, flashing her whole being, radiating the kind of joy that Brenda had once tried to destroy. But she hadn't destroyed it. She couldn't, because Maya Washington was made of stronger stuff than hate. She was made of love and courage and the unshakable belief that everyone deserved a second chance, even monsters, especially monsters who were trying not to be monsters anymore. Victoria came to stand beside Brenda. I didn't expect you to come. I almost didn't. I sat in the parking lot for an hour, told myself to drive away 100 times. What made you stay? Her. What you told me she said, about second chances. I wanted to see if she meant it. She always means what she says. She's like her mother that way. She's better than her mother, no offense. None taken. She's better than all of us. They watched Maya play with her friends, watched the party swirl around them, watched the impossible happen, healing happening in real time among people who had every reason to stay broken. What happens now? Brenda asked. Now you go back to your work, the training sessions, the testimonials, the slow daily grind of becoming someone different than who you were. And you, I go back to running an airline, making sure what happened to Maya never happens to anyone else, making sure the Maya initiative actually changes things, not just on paper, but in practice. Do you think it will change things? I think it already has. Complaints are up 30%, which sounds bad, but it means people are reporting things they used to stay silent about. Substantiated incidents are down 40%. The flight attendant union has started its own anti-bias training. Other airlines are copying our protocols. Because of what I did. Because of what Maya survived and how she responded. You were the catalyst, Brenda, but she's the one who turned tragedy into transformation. Brenda nodded slowly. I used to think legacy was about what you built, your career, your reputation, the things that had your name on them. And now I think legacy is about what survives you, the ripples you create that keep spreading long after you're gone. Maya's legacy is going to be millions of children who fly safely because she made people pay attention. My legacy is being the monster who made that necessary. That's a hard legacy to carry. It's the only one I deserve. The party wound down. Guests said goodbye. Maya hugged every single one of them, telling each person that she was glad they came, that she hoped they felt happy now that she would remember them forever. When only family remained, Victoria sat down with her daughter on the back porch, watching the stars come out. Mommy, can I ask you something? Always, baby. When I grow up, will people still remember what happened to me? Some will, most won't. That's how time works. Things that seem huge now become small later. Important things get forgotten so that new important things have room. Is that sad? I used to think so. Now I'm not sure. Maybe it's okay if people forget the specifics, as long as they remember the lesson. What's the lesson? Victoria pulled her daughter close. The lesson is that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Everyone belongs, everyone has value, and if someone tries to make you feel small, you don't shrink, you stand taller. Like a Washington woman. Like a Washington woman. Maya leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. I love you, Mommy. I love you too, baby, more than anything in the world. More than the airline, more than everything. The airline, the company, the money, the success, none of it matters compared to you. If I lost all of it tomorrow but still had you, I'd be the richest woman in the world. That's really nice. It's really true. They sat there until the stars filled the sky, until the night grew cool, until Maya fell asleep against her mother's side. Victoria carried her daughter to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Sleep well, my brave girl. Dream of all the places you'll fly, all the people you'll help, all the world you'll change. Maya smiled in her sleep, dreaming already, and Victoria walked back out to the porch, looked up at the stars, and made a silent promise. To Maya, to the 112 passengers, to every child who would ever board an airplane alone, to every person who had ever been made to feel like they didn't belong. She promised to keep fighting, keep building, keep making the world a little bit better, one flight at a time. Because that's what Washington women did. They didn't break. They bent. They hurt. They healed. And then they got back up and changed the world. 10 years later, Maya Washington, age 19, graduated from MIT with a degree in aerospace engineering. She delivered the commencement speech. When I was 5 years old, she told the assembled graduates, someone tried to break me. They succeeded, actually broke my arm, broke my sense of safety, broke my belief that the world was a good place. The audience listened rapt. But here's what they didn't understand. Breaking something isn't the same as destroying it. A broken bone heals stronger than it was before. A broken spirit, if you nurture it right, can become unbreakable. I'm standing here today because I refuse to let the worst thing that happened to me define me. I let it change me. I let it make me stronger. I let it show me exactly who I wanted to become. I'm going to design airplanes, safe airplanes. Airplanes where every passenger, no matter who they are, where they come from, or what they look like, feels welcome, feels protected, feels like they belong. That's my legacy, not being the girl who got hurt, being the woman who made sure no one else had to. In the audience, Victoria wept openly. Beside her, Grandma Rose clutched her hand. Behind them, barely visible in the crowd, Brenda Callahan watched the girl she'd once hurt become the woman who would change aviation forever. Maya finished her speech with the words that had guided her whole life. Be brave, even when you're scared. Stand tall, even when someone tries to make you small. And always, always remember you belong anywhere you choose to be. Nobody gets to tell you different. Nobody ever gets to tell you different. The crowd erupted in applause. Maya found her mother's eyes across the sea of people, smiled, winked, and Victoria knew with absolute certainty that everything, the pain, the struggle, the long, hard fight had been worth it. Because Maya Washington had risen from the ashes of her own destruction and become exactly who she was meant to be. A hero, a pioneer, a Washington woman, and nothing, not hate, not fear, not cruelty, not prejudice, would ever, ever stop her from soaring.